For over 2 years, my twin brother's wife kept saying my brother was overseas for work. Then one morning at the market, a delivery driver suddenly handed me a package. "Are you Dave's brother? It's yours now. Just open it alone." What was inside the package made my blood boil. The morning came in cold and gray, the kind of January day where the sky can't decide between rain and snow, so it just hangs there, threatening both. I remember thinking how fitting that was, this endless hovering between one thing and another, never quite committing to either state. That's what the past 2 years had felt like. Suspended, waiting, never quite landing on solid ground. I was at the farmer's market, not because I particularly needed anything, but because Saturday mornings had become my routine, a way to fill the hours. A way to pretend everything was normal when nothing had been normal since Dave disappeared into whatever overseas work meant. My twin brother, my other half. The person who used to call me at 2 in the morning just to debate whether Die Hard was a Christmas movie, who knew I took my coffee with too much sugar and no shame about it, who could finish my sentences before I'd even figured out how to start them. Gone for 26 months, 783 days, if you were counting. I was counting. The market was busy despite the weather, or maybe because of it, people seeking comfort in the ritual of fresh bread and local honey, in conversations with vendors who remembered their names. I was examining a display of winter squash, their orange and green skins waxy under the fluorescent lights of the indoor pavilion, when I felt someone watching me. You know that feeling. That prickle at the base of your skull that says you've become the subject of someone's attention. I turned, expecting maybe a neighbor or someone from the gym, someone who'd want to make small talk about the weather or the local high school basketball team. Instead, I found a delivery driver, mid-40s, maybe, wearing a standard brown uniform, the kind you see 100 times a day and never really notice. But his eyes were doing something strange. They were moving between me and a package in his hands, and there was something in his expression that I couldn't quite read. Hesitation, maybe. Or pity. "Excuse me," he said, his voice low enough that the woman next to me, the one debating between butternut and acorn squash, didn't even glance our way. "Are you Dave's brother?" The world did this thing it had been doing a lot lately. It tilted. Just slightly. Just enough to make me grab the edge of the produce table to steady myself. "I'm his twin," I said, and even I could hear how my voice had changed. Gone thin, gone careful. "Why?" He looked around, like he was checking to see who might be watching, like he was about to do something he wasn't supposed to do. Then he held out the package. It was small, maybe 8 inches by 10, wrapped in plain brown paper that had seen better days. No address label, no return address, just my name written in black marker across the front. Not Dave's name, mine. "This was supposed to go to him," the driver said, still speaking in that low, urgent tone. But the address kept bouncing. The sender. He paused, swallowed hard. The sender passed away 3 weeks ago. Liver failure. He was a regular on my route, and before he died, he told me if I couldn't deliver this to Dave, I should find you. He said you'd be the only one who could handle what's inside. "What sender? Who was it?" Man named Richard Chen. Worked at the shipping warehouse on Harbor Street until he got too sick. He said, the driver glanced around again, then leaned in closer. He said to tell you that Dave would have wanted you to know the truth, that someone needed to know the truth. And he said to open it alone, not around her. Her. He didn't have to clarify who her was. My sister-in-law, Melissa, Dave's wife of 5 years, who lived in the house that used to feel like a second home to me, who smiled at me across Sunday dinners and holiday tables while telling everyone that Dave was doing amazing things overseas and couldn't talk much because of security clearance and missed us terribly. The work was just too important. I took the package. It was heavier than it looked, dense with whatever secrets it carried. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Why not just leave it at my door?" The driver's face did something complicated. Because Richard made me promise. He was dying, man. Lying there in hospice with maybe a week left, and he grabbed my hand and made me swear I'd put this directly in your hands. Said it was the only decent thing he'd done in 2 years, making sure you'd get this. Said he couldn't die without knowing someone would finally tell you. He paused. He cried when he said it. A man I'd seen maybe once a week for 3 years. And he cried about your brother. The package felt like it was burning through my hands. I have to go, the driver said, backing away. I was never here. I never saw you. But he stopped, turned back. Whatever's in there, I hope it gives you what you need. Richard seemed to think it would. Then he was gone, disappearing into the Saturday morning crowd like he'd never existed at all. I stood there holding the package, my heart doing this strange arrhythmic thing in my chest, while around me people continued to shop for vegetables and artisan cheese and fresh-cut flowers. The world kept turning, kept pretending everything was normal, while I held what felt like a bomb in my hands. I didn't buy the squash. I didn't buy anything. I walked to my car in a daze, got in, locked the doors, and just sat there in the parking lot with the package on my lap. Open it alone, the driver had said. Not around her. The thing about being a twin is that you're never really alone. Not in the deep way other people are alone. There's always been this sense of someone else existing in the world who shares your DNA, your history, your face. Even when Dave and I were apart, even when we went days without talking, I could feel him out there, a presence, a certainty. But for 26 months, that certainty had been eroding. At first, I'd believed Melissa. Why wouldn't I? Dave had always been ambitious, always talked about wanting to do something meaningful with his engineering degree. When Melissa said he'd gotten recruited for a contract job overseas, something involving infrastructure development in a region where communication was difficult, it had seemed plausible. Unlikely, maybe, but not impossible. The first month was fine. Melissa said he was settling in, adjusting to the time difference. She showed me a few emails. Brief, generic. The kind of thing you'd write when you were exhausted and overwhelmed. Everything's good. Miss you all. Work is intense. Will call when I can. The second month, the emails got shorter. Then they stopped altogether. Security concerns, Melissa explained, her face a mask of wifely concern. He's working on sensitive projects. They've restricted outside communication. It's frustrating, but it's the nature of the work. By month 6, I was pushing, demanding phone numbers for his employer, asking for proof of life, wanting to know exactly where he was and what he was doing. Melissa got defensive, then angry, then tearful. Don't you think I'm scared too? She'd said, her voice breaking in that way that made me feel like a monster for questioning her. Don't you think I lie awake every night wondering if he's safe? But he chose this. He wanted to make a difference. And all we can do is trust him and wait. My mother had sided with Melissa. You're being paranoid, she'd told me over Sunday dinner, her hand covering Melissa's in a gesture of solidarity. Your brother is fine. He's doing important work. You need to stop harassing his wife. Harassing. That's what wanting answers had become. Harassment. So I backed off. Stopped asking. Stopped pushing. Started going through the motions of normal life, while this absence carved itself deeper into my chest. And now I was sitting in a parking lot, holding a package from a dead man, and everything I'd been trying not to feel for 26 months was rising up in my throat like bile. I looked at my name on the package, written in that black marker. Someone had put this together for me. Someone had known I needed to see whatever was inside. My hands were shaking when I tore open the brown paper. Inside was a hard drive. One of those portable external drives, small enough to fit in your palm, black and nondescript. Attached to it with a rubber band was a USB stick. And underneath both of those, folded into a precise square, was a letter written on lined notebook paper. I unfolded the letter. The handwriting was shaky, the letters barely holding their shape, written by someone whose hands weren't quite working anymore. But the words were clear enough. I don't know you, but Dave talked about you all the time. Said you were the better half, the one who always did the right thing. He made me promise that if anything happened to him, I'd get this to you. Not to her. Never to her. He said you'd know what to do with the truth. I'm sorry I waited so long. I was scared. Well, you'll see. But I'm dying now, and fear doesn't mean much when you're counting your last days. Dave deserves better than what happened to him. You deserve better than what they did to you. Everything you need is on the drives. Bank records, emails, photos, recordings. It's all there. Every piece of it. I'm sorry. I'm so goddamn sorry. Richard. My vision was blurring. I realized I was crying, tears dropping onto the letter and making the ink run, but I couldn't stop, couldn't breathe properly, couldn't think past the roaring in my ears. Everything you need is on the drives. Dave deserves better than what happened to him. What happened to him? Not what's happening. Not what he's doing. What happened? Past tense. I grabbed my laptop from the back seat. I'd been planning to do some work at a coffee shop after the market and powered it up right there in the parking lot. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely plug in the hard drive. But finally, it connected. The drive opened to reveal 3 folders. Financial records, correspondence, evidence. I clicked on evidence first because I'm not a patient man. Not when my twin brother's life is apparently contained in digital files on a dead man's hard drive. The folder contained dozens of video files. I clicked on the first one, labeled Dave Deck 2022 1.mp4. My brother's face filled the screen. He looked terrible. Thin, exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes that I'd never seen before. He was in a small room, sitting on what looked like a cheap motel bed, and he was staring directly into the camera with an expression that made my stomach drop. "Hey, twin," he said, and his voice cracked on the word. "If you're seeing this, then Richard kept his promise, or you found this some other way. Either way." He stopped, pressed his hands against his face. When he lowered them, I could see he was crying. "Either way, I need you to know I never left willingly. I need you to know I fought, and I need you to know that everything Melissa told you is a lie." The screen went dark. I sat there in my car, in a farmer's market parking lot on a gray January morning, and I felt something inside me break open. Not break apart, break open. Like something that had been locked away for 26 months finally had permission to breathe. Around me, people were loading groceries into their cars, children were laughing, life was continuing in its mundane, beautiful way. And I was learning that my brother had been trying to tell me the truth all along. I had 9 more chapters of this story ahead of me. But in that moment, holding the hard drive like a lifeline, I made a promise to Dave and to myself. Whatever the truth was, however ugly it got, I would see it through. And someone, maybe several someones, would finally pay for what they'd done. I didn't go home. Couldn't. The thought of being in my apartment, those 4 walls that had witnessed 26 months of my slowly unraveling sanity, where I'd convinced myself I was being paranoid, where I had apologized to Melissa over voicemail for overreacting, made me physically ill. Instead, I drove to the lake. It was a place Dave and I had gone as kids, back when our biggest problems were whether we'd saved enough allowance for the arcade, or which one of us would have to tell Mom we'd accidentally broken her favorite vase playing indoor baseball. There was a picnic area that nobody used in winter, just empty tables and a parking lot that overlooked gray water stretching toward a grayer horizon. I parked facing the lake, engine running for heat, laptop balanced on my steering wheel, and I opened the next video file. Dave, Deck 2022, 2 MP4. My brother appeared again. same room. But this time he'd clearly been crying for a while. His eyes were red and swollen, his voice hoarse. "I don't know where to start," he said, staring into the camera like he was trying to see through it, through time, directly to me. I guess I'll start with the lie. The big one. The one that everything else hangs on." He took a breath that shuddered through his entire body. "I never went overseas. I never left the state. I've been 40 minutes from home this entire time, and Melissa has known exactly where I am every single day." The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually felt my chest constrict, my lungs forgetting how to process air. 2 years ago, Dave continued, his voice gaining strength even as tears rolled down his face. Melissa came to me with what she called an opportunity. Her uncle, you never met him, he died before the wedding had left her a trust fund. $500,000. But there was a condition in the will. She could only access it if she was married, and only after 2 years of marriage. We'd been married for 3 years at that point, so she was eligible. He stopped, laughed bitterly. It was a sound I'd never heard from my brother before, hollow, empty of anything resembling joy. But here's the thing about the trust fund. It was set up specifically to protect the money from her. The uncle knew what she was, knew she'd blow through it in 6 months if he just gave it to her outright. So the trust had stipulations, requirements, rules. Dave leaned closer to the camera, and I could see the exhaustion etched into every line of his face. One of those rules was that she couldn't access the money if she was married to someone with significant debt or financial instability. And I had debt. Student loans, mostly. About $80,000 from grad school. Not terrible, but enough that the trust administrator would flag it. Enough that she couldn't touch the money while we were married. I felt my hands tightening on the laptop, my knuckles going white. So she asked me for a favor. Asked me to disappear for 2 years. Just 2 years. She'd file for legal separation. Not divorce, just separation. On the grounds that I'd abandoned the marriage. The trust had a clause that if she was legally separated due to abandonment, she could access the funds for her own financial security. All I had to do was vanish. Make it look real. Stay hidden for 24 months while she got the money, and then we'd quietly reconcile. She promised me $100,000 for my trouble. Enough to wipe out my debt and have money left over. My brother's face crumpled. I said yes. God help me. I said yes. Because $100,000 sounded like a miracle, and 2 years sounded manageable, and she was my wife. She looked me in the eye and promised me we'd come back from this. Promised me it was just paperwork and patience. Promised me she loved me, and this was our chance at a real future. He wiped his face roughly with the back of his hand. So I left, packed a bag like I was going on a work trip, and I drove to this motel in Carson Falls. Population 900. Nothing but farmland and a truck stop. Melissa rented the room under a fake name, paid cash for a year up front. I was supposed to stay here, keep my head down, not contact anyone. She said it had to look real or the trust administrator wouldn't buy it. Said if anyone found out I was still local, the whole thing would collapse. Carson Falls. I knew that town. Had driven through it on the way to fishing trips up north, 43 minutes from our mother's house. Less than an hour from the apartment I'd been living in, going slowly insane with worry. The first month was okay, Dave continued, his voice distant now, like he was watching himself from somewhere outside his body. Boring, but okay. Melissa visited twice a week. Brought me groceries, money for expenses, news from home. She told me everyone was handling the lie well, that you were concerned but believed the overseas story, that Mom was sad but proud, that everything was going according to plan. He stopped, pressed his palms against his eyes. By month 3, her visits dropped to once a week, then every 2 weeks. She stopped answering my calls except at scheduled times. Said it was too risky, that phone records could expose everything. I believed her. I believed every goddamn word, because why wouldn't I? She was my wife. The next video file was labeled Dave Marr 2023 1.mp4. I clicked it with hands that had gone numb. This version of Dave looked worse. He'd lost weight, his clothes hanging loose on a frame that used to be solid with muscle from weekend basketball games and gym sessions we'd do together. The room behind him was the same, but I could see now how small it was, how depressing. A single bed, with a faded comforter, yellowed walls, a bathroom door that hung slightly crooked on its hinges. 6 months in, he said without preamble, I started to suspect something was wrong. Melissa's visits had dropped to once a month, and she'd stopped looking me in the eye, stopped touching me. When I tried to kiss her, she'd turn her head, make excuses, said she was stressed, said the lawyers were asking questions, said we just had to hold on a little longer. Dave leaned back against the wall, and I could see his hands were shaking. So I broke the rules. I went online. I'd been using the motel's Wi-Fi the whole time, and I looked up our names, public records, court filings. Wanted to see what the legal separation paperwork looked like if it seemed legitimate. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. There was no legal separation filed, no paperwork at all, but there were other documents. A restraining order filed 3 months after I left, against me, filed by Melissa, claiming I'd become verbally abusive and threatening before I abandoned her, claiming she feared for her safety. I felt something cold spreading through my chest, like ice water in my veins. And there were social media posts. Her social media, which I deleted from my phone like she'd asked me to, so I wouldn't be tempted to check it. Posts about how hard it was being married to someone with anger issues. Posts about finding strength after emotional abuse. Posts about her journey of healing from a toxic marriage. Dave's face was completely expressionless now, like he'd used up all his capacity for emotion and had nothing left. She was rewriting history, rewriting me, turning me into her villain, while I sat in a motel room 40 minutes away, believing I was helping her, believing we were in this together. He picked up something off camera, a bottle of water, and drank from it, with hands that trembled so badly water sloshed onto his shirt. I confronted her during her next visit, asked about the restraining order, the posts, the narrative she was building. You know what she said? He looked directly into the camera, and his eyes were dead. She said I was being paranoid, said the restraining order was her lawyer's idea, that it would help her case for the trust fund, said the social media posts were just her processing her feelings about our separation. She cried. Actually cried. Told me she loved me and I was breaking her heart by not trusting her. And like an idiot, like the biggest goddamn idiot who ever lived, I believed her. Again. I had to pause the video. Had to get out of the car and walk to the edge of the parking lot, where I could stare at the lake and try to process what I was learning. My brother hadn't been overseas doing important work. He'd been in a motel room in Carson Falls, 40 minutes away, disappearing from his own life based on a lie. And Melissa had been lying to all of us. To me, to our mother, to every person who'd asked about Dave over Sunday dinners and holiday gatherings. She'd looked us in our faces and told us he was thriving, he was important, he was coming home soon, while he rotted in a motel room she'd put him in. I wanted to scream, wanted to get in my car and drive to the house Dave and Melissa had shared. The house I'd stopped visiting because it hurt too much to be there without him, and I wanted to demand answers, wanted to shake her until the truth fell out. But something stopped me. The same instinct that had kept Richard from going to the police, maybe. The same knowledge that this was bigger than just one lie, that there were more layers to uncover. I got back in the car, turned the heat up higher, and opened the next video. Dave, June 2023, 1, MP4. 9 months in, my brother looked like a ghost, like someone had taken Dave and hollowed him out, leaving only the shell. I met Richard about 3 months ago, he said, his voice flat. He works at the shipping warehouse, delivers packages to the motel office sometimes. We started talking because he recognized me from the newspapers. My stomach dropped. Yeah, Dave continued, seeing the question on my face, even though I hadn't asked it yet, even though this video was recorded over a year ago. Newspapers. Because Melissa didn't just file a restraining order. She filed a missing persons report. Told the police I'd drained our bank account and disappeared. Told them she feared I was having a mental breakdown. Gave them just enough information to make them look, but not enough to actually find me. He laughed again, that horrible, hollow sound. The search was perfunctory. A few news articles, some social media appeals, a detective who called my phone twice and then closed the case when I didn't answer. But it was enough. Enough to make her look like the victim. Enough to make the trust administrator sympathetic when she applied for hardship access to her funds. She got the money 10 months in, Dave said. Richard helped me find out. He's good with computers. Knew how to search public records. The trust distributed all $500,000 to Melissa Chang Morrison in July of last year. She got everything she wanted. His voice cracked. And she kept visiting me, once a month, like clockwork, bringing just enough money to keep me fed and quiet. Telling me we were almost done. Just a few more months. Just until the paperwork cleared. Just until things settled down. She'd hold my hand and tell me she missed me and we'd get through this together. Dave stood up from the bed, started pacing in the tiny space of the motel room. The camera followed him, and I realized he must have set it up on the dresser. Richard was the one who told me to document everything. Said I'd need proof when this was over, because people like Melissa don't let their victims walk away clean. So I started recording. Every visit, every conversation, every time she lied to my face while her hand was in my pocket. He stopped pacing, turned to face the camera directly. And I started looking into her, really looking. Not just at the trust fund, but at everything. Her finances, her communications, her life. His expression did something I'd never seen before. Something hard and calculating and completely unlike the brother I'd known all my life. Turns out my wife is very good at lying. Has been for a long time. And the trust fund? That was just the beginning. The video ended. I sat there in my car while the afternoon lights started to fail, the sky going from gray to charcoal, and I opened the financial records folder. Inside were dozens of PDF files, spreadsheets, bank statements, all meticulously organized and dated. I started with a file labeled Trust Fund Timeline XLSX. The spreadsheet laid it out in brutal clarity. Trust fund established 2015 by Uncle Marcus Chen. Amount, $500,000. Beneficiary, Melissa Chen. Later, Melissa Chang Morrison. Access conditions. Married for minimum 2 years. No spousal debt over $50K. Demonstration of financial need. Or legal separation due to spousal abandonment. Application for hardship distribution. Filed March 2023. Distribution approved July 2023. Full amount transferred to Melissa's personal account. The 15th of July, 2023. But there were other files. Other accounts. I clicked on Melissa, Accounts, Summary.xlsx. My breath caught. Melissa had 17 different bank accounts. 17. Under various names and institutions. And they all showed regular deposits over the past 2 years, ranging from a few $100s to several thousand, from sources I didn't recognize. There was another folder inside financial records labeled Revenue Streams. I opened it. Inside were screenshots of social media accounts I'd never seen. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all under variations of usernames, all with tens of thousands of followers. Surviving abuse, Melissa. Healing from narcissism, MC. Life after toxic, Love. I clicked on a screenshot of an Instagram post. It showed Melissa, looking beautiful and vulnerable, sitting in what I recognized as her living room. The caption read, 2 years since he left. 2 years of rebuilding myself from the ruins of a marriage I thought would last forever. To everyone asking if I've heard from him, no. Radio silence. But I'm learning that sometimes the absence of closure is its own kind of answer. Sometimes people show you who they are by disappearing. Number surviving abandonment. Number healing journey. Number toxic marriage. Number finding myself. The post had 47,000 likes. There were dozens of these. Hundreds. Posts about her pain, her healing, her journey. Posts that monetized her victim narrative through sponsorships and affiliate links. Posts that turned my brother's manufactured disappearance into content. Into income. I scrolled through the financial summaries. Ad revenue from YouTube videos about emotional abuse. Sponsored posts on Instagram promoting therapy apps and self-help books. A Patreon account where people paid monthly to access her exclusive healing content. Book deal negotiations with a publisher interested in her story of survival. She'd made over $200,000 in the past 18 months. $200,000 on top of the $500,000 from the trust fund. She'd turned my brother into a profit center. I opened another video file. This one from September of last year. Dave, Sep 2023, 1.mp4. Dave looked directly into the camera, and there was something different about him now. Something that hadn't been there before. Not quite anger stronger than that. Clearer. I'm done, he said simply. I'm done being her ghost, her cautionary tale, her content. He held up a flash drive. Everything is on here. Every conversation I recorded, every financial document Richard and I could find, every lie she told in every social media post, cross-referenced with the actual truth. She wanted to make me disappear? Fine. I disappeared, but ghosts have a way of coming back. He smiled, and it was not a kind smile. The question is, who deserves to see the truth first? The trust administrator who distributed funds based on fraudulent claims? The followers who've been funding her fake healing journey? The family she's been lying to for 2 years? He leaned closer to the camera, close enough that I could see the gold flecks in his brown eyes, the same eyes I saw in my mirror every morning. Or you, twin? Do you deserve the truth first? Do you deserve to know that every time you called her worried sick about me, she was counting the money she'd made off my disappearance? The video ended. I closed my laptop as the last light drained from the sky, leaving me in darkness, broken only by the glow of my dashboard. My phone buzzed. A text from our mother. Sunday dinner tomorrow? Melissa's coming. She seems down lately. Could use family support. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back, I'll be there, because I had 9 more video files to watch. I had financial records to study. I had a dead man's promise to honor and a living brother to find. And I had a sister-in-law who had no idea that the ghost she'd created was about to become very, very real. The lake stretched out before me, dark and infinite, holding secrets beneath its surface, just like me. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open and a pot of coffee that I kept forgetting to drink, watching my brother's life unravel in recorded segments while the hours crawled toward dawn. Dave, Dec, 2023, 1.mp4. 15 months in, my brother had gained some weight back, but it wasn't the healthy kind. It was the weight of someone who'd stopped moving, stopped caring, stopped being anything except a body taking up space in a room that cost $40 a night. She came yesterday, he said, and his voice had this flat quality that scared me more than the tears had. Brought groceries, toilet paper, the cheapest kind. The kind that feels like sandpaper. She used to buy the good stuff. Back when she was pretending this was temporary. Back when she needed me to believe we were partners in this. He was sitting on the floor now, back against the wall, knees drawn up. The camera angle suggested he'd propped his phone on the nightstand. I asked her when I could come home. Direct question. No hedging. Just, Melissa, when can I come home? Dave's laugh was bitter enough to taste. She said soon. Said there were still some legal complications with the trust, some paperwork that needed to clear. She said it so smoothly, twin, like she'd practiced it, like she'd stood in front of a mirror and rehearsed the exact tone of voice that would keep me docile for another month. He picked at a thread on his jeans, pulling it loose. So I asked her about the money. Asked if the trust had distributed yet. You know what she did? She looked me right in the eye and said no. Said the administrator was being difficult, dragging their feet, making her jump through hoops. She even cried a little. Said she was so frustrated, so tired of fighting for what her uncle wanted her to have. The thread came free in his hand. He stared at it like it was the most fascinating thing in the world. The trust distributed 4 months ago. Richard confirmed it. $500,000. Transferred clean. She got every penny. And she stood in this shitty motel room and lied to my face about it. Dave looked up at the camera, and his eyes were clear. Terrifyingly clear. That's when I knew she was never planning to let me come back. This was never about 2 years. This was about making me disappear permanently while she lived off the money and the sympathy and the story of the husband who abandoned her. He stood up, started pacing again. 3 steps one way, 3 steps back. The dimensions of his cage. Richard's been helping me put together a timeline. Every lie, every manipulation, every dollar she's made off my disappearance. And here's the thing that really gets me. She's good at this. Really good. The social media posts are perfectly calibrated. Vulnerable but strong. Hurt but healing. She never says anything explicitly false about me. Never claims I hit her or cheated or did anything specific that could be disproven. She just implies. Suggests. Lets people fill in the blanks with their own assumptions. He stopped pacing. Turned to face the camera dead on. She's turned ambiguity into an art form, and it's making her rich. The next video was labeled Dave Feb 2024 1.mp4. 17 months. My brother looked older. Not just tired, older. Like the 1.5 years in that room had aged him in ways that normal time couldn't account for. I need to tell you something, he said, and his voice was shaking. Something I haven't been able to say out loud yet, even to Richard. He sat down on the edge of the bed, hands clasped between his knees. I think she's planning to kill me. The words hung in the air, impossible and absolute. Not directly, Dave continued quickly. She's too smart for that. But indirectly, through neglect, through isolation, through the slow erosion of everything that makes a person want to keep living. His hands were trembling now, so badly he had to press them flat against his thighs to still them. Her visits have dropped to every 6 weeks now. Sometimes 2 months. The money she leaves barely covers food. The motel owner, his name is Frank, he's the only person I talk to besides Richard. Frank told me she's 3 months behind on rent. She paid through the end of last year and hasn't paid since. He's letting me stay because he feels bad for me, but that can't last forever. Dave's voice cracked. She's letting the situation deteriorate, letting me run out of options. Maybe she's hoping I'll just give up, walk away, and disappear for real. Or maybe she's hoping for something worse. An accident. A desperate decision. Something that would turn her narrative into a tragedy she could monetize even further. He looked directly at the camera, and I saw fear there. Real. Animal fear. I'm scared, twin. I'm scared that if I stay here much longer, I'll stop being me. I'll become the ghost she's already turned me into online. And if that happens, if I actually disappear, who's going to tell the truth? Who's going to stop her? The video ended. I got up from the kitchen table, walked to my bathroom, and threw up. Just knelt there on the cold tile while my stomach emptied itself and my brother's words echoed in my head. I think she's planning to kill me. When I could stand again, I went back to the laptop, opened the correspondence folder. Inside were email chains, text messages, recordings of phone conversations, all meticulously dated and organized, all building a case that my brother had been assembling piece by piece from inside his prison. I clicked on a file labeled Melissa Texts Jan 2024 PDF. The messages made my skin crawl. Hey babe, sorry I couldn't make it this week. Crazy busy with work stuff. We'll try for next week. You said that last week. I need to see you. We need to talk about timing. I know. I promise we'll talk soon. Just need you to be patient a little longer. Love you. When, Melissa? When, exactly? Don't be like this. You're making things harder. I'm making things harder? I've been in this room for almost 18 months. This was your idea, too. Don't act like I forced you. You said 2 years maximum. We're past that. Actually, we're at 18 months. Math was never your strong suit. What I want to be 1-0 and unready, with Sword having math, and on power, with Miter Lev, and on power, with Mida Stuer, and on power, with Mida Stuer. Actually, we're at 18 months. The casual cruelty of that last line made me want to put my fist through the laptop screen. I scrolled further, found a recorded phone conversation from March of last year. I clicked play. Just need a number, Dave's voice said. Tinny through the recording. A date. Something concrete. I can't give you that right now. Melissa's voice, calm and controlled. The situation is fluid. The situation is that I'm losing my mind in this room. You're being dramatic. I haven't seen another human being besides the motel owner and a delivery driver in 6 months. That's your choice. You could go out. I never said you couldn't. You said if anyone saw me, if anyone knew I was still local, the whole plan would collapse. A pause. Then Melissa's voice, colder now. The plan already succeeded, Dave. The trust distributed. I have the money. What you're experiencing now is the consequence of your own choices. My own. You asked me to do this. You begged me. I asked you to help me access money that was rightfully mine. You agreed because you wanted a payout. Now you're having regrets. And that's not my problem. End quote. You are R of one. That's not my problem. When can I come home? I don't know if you can. Silence. Long and terrible. What do you mean? Melissa's voice was patient now, like she was explaining something to a child. I mean that the narrative is set. The legal framework is established. I'm the abandoned wife. You're the unstable husband who disappeared. If you suddenly show up now, after I've filed a missing persons report, after the restraining order, after all the documentation, what do you think happens? The truth comes out. We explain. We explain that you voluntarily disappeared to help me defraud a trust fund, that we fabricated an abandonment story, that everything I've said publicly for the past 1.5 years has been a calculated lie. She laughed. David, think. Actually use your brain for once. If you come back now, we both go to jail for fraud. The trust sues for return of funds. I lose everything. You lose everything. Is that what you want? So what? I just stay here forever? You stay there until I figure out a safe way to unwind this, if that's even possible. Which, honestly, I'm not sure it is. Unwind. One friend. 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 One friend.
One friend,
Melissa, I have to go. I'll send money next week. The recording ended. I sat there staring at the screen. My hands clenched so tight my nails were cutting into my palms. She'd trapped him. Deliberately, methodically trapped him. Made him complicit in fraud so he couldn't expose her without destroying himself. And then she'd left him there to rot while she profited off his absence. I opened another file. Melissa, social media, greatest hits, PDF. It was a compilation Richard had put together. Screenshots of Melissa's most popular posts, arranged chronologically, with notes about engagement and revenue. March 2023. Learning to sleep alone in the bed we once shared. Learning that empty space can be filled with self-love instead of someone else's broken promises. Number, healing journey. Number, abandonment recovery. Likes, 89,000. Revenue from post sponsorships, affiliate, $3,400. June 2023. People ask if I'm angry. The truth? I'm grateful. His leaving forced me to find a strength I didn't know I had. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is the best thing that could happen for you. Number, silver lining. Number, growth mindset. Number, toxic free. Likes, 134,000. Revenue, $5,200. October 2023. 1 year since he walked out. 1 year of rebuilding. 1 year of learning that I am enough, all by myself. To everyone going through this, you will survive. You will thrive. You will rise. Number 1 year. Number survivor not of sightum. Number rising strong. Likes, 201,000. Revenue, $8,900. Each post more successful than the last. Each one another nail in my brother's coffin. Each one another dollar in her account. There was a subsection labeled Book Deal Correspondence. I opened it with hands that had gone numb. Email from a literary agent to Melissa, dated November 2023. Melissa, your story is exactly what publishers are looking for right now. The abandoned wife finding strength, the journey from victim to survivor, the modern woman learning to thrive independently, it's memoir gold. Based on your social media following and engagement rates, I'm confident we can get you a 6-figure advance, possibly more if we auction it properly. Let's schedule a call to discuss your outline. Melissa's response. This is amazing. I've been documenting everything in private journals. I have so much material to work with. When David left, I never imagined it would lead here. But maybe this is the universe's way of showing me that even our worst moments can become our greatest opportunities. Let's talk next week about moving forward. I had to close the laptop. Had to stand up and pace my apartment because sitting still felt impossible. She was going to write a book. A whole book about my brother abandoning her. A book built on lies and manipulation and fraud. A book that would cement her victim narrative forever, while Dave rotted in a motel room 40 minutes away, too trapped by his own complicity to speak the truth. The sky outside my window was starting to lighten, gray dawn bleeding into gray morning. I'd been up all night, and I had Sunday dinner in 12 hours. I opened the laptop again. One more video file. Dave, Apper, 2024, 1.mp4. 20 months. My brother looked like he'd given up on maintaining any pretense of normalcy. His hair was too long, unkempt. His clothes hung on him, but his eyes were sharp, focused. If you're watching this, he said, then something happened to me, or Richard kept his promise. Either way, you have the evidence now. All of it. Everything you need to understand what she did, what she is. End quote. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking about confronting her. about exposing her, about making her pay. And you should. You absolutely should. But you need to be smart about it. Dave held up a finger. First, she's not just going to confess. She'll lie, she'll cry, she'll turn it around on you. She's had 2 years to perfect her victim persona, and she'll weaponize it. Don't expect remorse. Don't expect honesty. Expect performance. A second finger. Second, she's made herself legally complicated. The fraud, the restraining order, the missing persons report. It's all a tangle designed to make coming forward dangerous for me. But you're not me. You can go to the authorities with this evidence without implicating yourself. Use that. A third finger. Third, she's built an audience. Thousands of people who believe her story, who've invested emotionally in her journey. When the truth comes out, they'll feel betrayed, angry. Use that too. The court of public opinion can be just as devastating as an actual court. He lowered his hand. But most importantly, and I need you to hear this, I don't want revenge. I want truth. I want the record set straight. I want her to face consequences for what she's done. But I don't want to become like her. Don't let this make you cruel. Don't let it poison you the way it's poisoned everything it's touched. My brother smiled then, sad and weary, and still somehow hopeful. I miss you, twin. I miss Mom. I miss my life. If I get out of this when I get out of this, I'm never taking anything for granted again. Not coffee with you on Saturday mornings. Not Mom's terrible pot roast. Not the feeling of being free to just exist in the world. He stood up, walked closer to the camera. One more thing. In the evidence folder, there's a file called Current Location PDF. If you're watching this, and I'm not already found, start there. The motel owner, Frank Weatherby, he knows everything. He's been keeping records too, in case anything happens to me. He's a good man. He'll help you. Dave reached out, like he was going to turn off the camera, then stopped. I love you. Tell Mom I love her, and tell Melissa. He paused, thought about it. Tell Melissa that ghosts remember everything. The video ended. I found the file he'd mentioned. Current, location, PDF. Inside was an address in Carson Falls. The Highway Rest Motel, room 14. A photo of the building, single story, faded blue paint, a neon sign that said vacancy in letters that probably hadn't changed in 20 years. Below that, Frank Weatherby's phone number. And below that, a note in Richard's handwriting, scanned in. Dave's rent is paid through the end of May. After that, Frank says he'll have to ask him to leave. If you're reading this after May 31st, Frank will know where Dave went. Call him. I checked the date. May 31st had been 7 months ago. My heart stopped. I grabbed my phone, called the number with shaking hands. It rang 4 times. 5, 6. Then, Highway Rest, Frank, speaking. My name is, I'm Dave Morrison's brother, his twin. I need to know if he's... Hold on. The voice was older, gravelly, kind. You're the one Richard said would call. Took you long enough. Is he alive? Please, just tell me if he's alive. A pause that lasted a century. He's alive. He's not here anymore, but he's alive. The relief nearly knocked me over. Where is he? Can't tell you over the phone, but if you want to see him, you can. He made me promise not to give his location to anyone but you, not even to her, especially not to her. I'll drive up right now. Sunday afternoon's better. I'm here until 3. Come alone. I will. Thank you. Thank you so much. Don't thank me yet, son. Wait until you see what 2 years in that room did to him. Then decide if gratitude's the right response. He hung up. I sat there holding my phone, watching the sun rise over my city, and I thought about Sunday dinner. About sitting across from Melissa while she played the grieving, abandoned wife. About my mother defending her, comforting her, treating her like the victim she'd pretended to be for 26 months. About all the times I'd apologized to Melissa for doubting her, for asking too many questions, for being paranoid. The rage that filled me was clean and cold and absolutely certain. I opened my laptop one more time, created a new document, and I started writing down exactly what I was going to say. Because Melissa wanted to tell stories, I had a better one. And unlike hers, mine had the benefit of being true. Sunday morning arrived with the kind of crystalline winter light that makes everything look sharp-edged and unforgiving. I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, electric razor in hand, and studied my reflection. Dave's reflection. We were identical twins, but 2 years of different lives had started to create distinctions. I had lines around my eyes from squinting at computer screens and laughing at bad jokes with coworkers. From living a normal life, while my brother disappeared into a room the size of a prison cell. What lines did Dave have now? What had 26 months of isolation carved into his face? I finished shaving, got dressed. Jeans and a sweater, Sunday dinner at Mom's was casual. The same outfit I'd worn to dozens of these dinners over the past 2 years while Melissa sat across from me and performed grief. My phone buzzed. "Can you pick up wine? Melissa's bringing dessert, but I forgot to get drinks." I stared at that message, at Melissa's name, so casual, so familiar, like she was family, like she belonged there. I typed back, "Sure, red or white?" "Both." You know how your uncle likes options. I did know. Uncle Jerry would drink anything as long as it was free, and there was plenty of it. Normal family stuff. Normal Sunday dinner dynamics. Except nothing about this was normal anymore. I drove to the wine store, picked out 2 bottles at random. I couldn't have told you what they were if you'd asked me 30 seconds later. My mind was elsewhere. In a motel room in Carson Falls. In the videos I'd watched all night. In the decision I'd made sometime around 4 in the morning. I wasn't going to confront Melissa today. Not yet. The realization had come to me while watching Dave's final video for the 3rd time, listening to him say, "Don't let this make you cruel." Melissa had spent 2 years building a narrative. 2 years constructing a version of reality where she was the victim and Dave was the villain. She'd done it methodically, carefully, with the precision of someone who understood that stories matter more than facts, that perception creates its own truth. If I went in angry, if I accused her without strategy, she'd flip the script. I'd become the delusional brother-in-law, the one who couldn't accept that his twin had abandoned his wife. She'd weaponize my grief against me, turn it into evidence of instability. No, if I was going to dismantle her lie, I needed to do it the way Dave had been doing it, piece by piece, evidence by evidence, with the cold clarity of documentation instead of the hot mess of emotion. Today was reconnaissance. Today I watched. I observed. I let Melissa perform while I cataloged every lie, every manipulation, every moment that would look damning when the truth finally came out. Today I became a ghost in my own family's house. Present but not participating, watching the woman who destroyed my brother without her knowing. I could see her clearly now. The drive to Mom's house took 20 minutes through neighborhoods I'd known all my life. Tree-lined streets, houses with front porches, the kind of community where people still waved to each other and knew their mailman's name. Dave and I had grown up 3 blocks from where Mom lived now, in a smaller house that she'd sold after Dad died. Normal. Everything. So goddamn normal. I pulled up to find Melissa's car already in the driveway. A sensible Honda Civic. White, with one of those coexist bumper stickers that made you think the driver was thoughtful and open-minded. Looking at it now, knowing what I knew, the bumper sticker felt obscene. I grabbed the wine, walked up the front steps, let myself in the way I always did. "In here!" Mom's voice from the kitchen. The house smelled like roast chicken and rosemary. Classical music played softly from the speaker in the living room, Mom's Sunday afternoon ritual. Everything warm and familiar and safe. I walked into the kitchen, and there she was. Melissa. She looked good. That was the first thing that hit me, and it made me furious. She looked healthy and well-rested, her dark hair pulled back in a casual ponytail, wearing jeans and a soft gray sweater that probably cost more than Dave's monthly motel rent. She was laughing at something Mom had said, her face animated and open. The performance was flawless. "Oh good, you brought wine." Mom turned from the stove, spatula in hand, and smiled at me. "Melissa was just telling me about this new meditation retreat she's thinking about attending. Doesn't it sound wonderful?" Melissa's smile didn't waver as she turned to face me. "Hey, stranger. Long time no see." I'd skipped the last 2 Sunday dinners, unable to stomach the pretense. She knew that. We both knew that. "Hey," I said, setting the wine on the counter. "How have you been?" "Oh, you know," she shrugged, graceful and resigned. "Taking it day by day. Some days are harder than others, but I'm managing." The lie sat there between us, perfect and practiced. "Any news?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Her expression shifted just slightly. Just enough. A micro-expression of pain, quickly controlled. "No, nothing. I keep hoping he'll call, or email, or give some sign that he's okay, but..." She trailed off, shook her head. "I've had to accept that maybe he doesn't want to be found." Mom made a sympathetic sound, reached over to squeeze Melissa's hand. "He's dealing with something, sweetheart. Whatever it is, it's not about you. You know that, right?" "Some days I believe that," Melissa said softly. "Other days, I wonder what I did wrong, what I could have done differently." I watched her, really watched her, and saw what I'd been too grief-blind to see before. The performance wasn't just good, it was masterful. Every gesture calculated for maximum sympathy. Every word chosen to reinforce her narrative while maintaining plausible deniability. She never said Dave had done anything wrong, never claimed abuse or mistreatment, just implied, suggested, let the listener fill in the blanks with their own assumptions about why a husband would abandon his wife. "You didn't do anything wrong," Mom said firmly. "Sometimes people break, and it has nothing to do with the people around them. Sometimes people are broken," I thought, staring at Melissa, "and sometimes they're just buried alive." "Can I help with anything?" I asked, needing to move, needing to do something with my hands before I did something stupid. "You can set the table," Mom said. "Your uncle should be here any minute, and you know how he gets if dinner's not ready." I went to the dining room, started pulling out plates and silverware. Through the doorway, I could hear Mom and Melissa talking, their voices a comfortable murmur. Talking about the meditation retreat, about a new yoga class Melissa had started, about a recipe she'd tried last week. Normal conversation, the kind you have with family. I set out 4 plates, 1 for each of us, and 1 for Uncle Jerry. 4 forks, 4 knives, 4 spoons, 4 glasses for the wine I'd bought. Not 5. We used to set 5 places. Before Dave left. The absence of that 5th plate felt like a wound. Uncle Jerry arrived in his usual whirlwind fashion, bringing cold air and loud opinions about the traffic. He hugged Mom, hugged Melissa, clapped me on the shoulder hard enough to rattle my teeth. "How's my favorite nephew?" he boomed. "I'm fine, Uncle Jerry." "That's what you always say." "Fine, fine. Everyone's fine. Nobody's ever great anymore. What happened to great?" What happened to great was that my brother was trapped in a motel room while his wife profited off his disappearance, but I couldn't say that. "Traffic wasn't too bad?" Mom asked, steering the conversation towards safer ground. We settled around the table, the 4 of us, and Mom brought out the chicken. Uncle Jerry opened the wine, poured generous glasses, made a toast to family and health and the blessing of Sunday dinners. We drank. I watched Melissa over the rim of my glass. She ate delicately, contributed to the conversation with perfect timing, laughed at Uncle Jerry's terrible jokes. Every few minutes, her hand would drift to the empty chair beside her where Dave used to sit, and her expression would do that thing again, that flicker of controlled pain. It was the chair that got me, the way she used it as a prop, a visual reminder of absence, the way her hand would rest on its back while she talked about moving forward, about healing, about learning to be okay with uncertainty. Dave's chair had become part of her performance. "So I've been thinking," Uncle Jerry said, around a mouthful of chicken, "about taking a trip this summer. One of those Alaskan cruises. You interested, kiddo?" He nodded at me. "Maybe," I said. "I'd have to check my work schedule." "Always working, this one," he said to the table at large. Just like his brother, those boys never could sit still. Silence dropped over the table like a curtain. Melissa's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Mom's smile went strained. Uncle Jerry, realizing what he'd said, looked stricken. "I'm sorry," he said quickly. "I didn't mean." "It's okay," Melissa said, setting down her fork with careful precision. "It's good to talk about him. He is part of this family. We shouldn't tiptoe around his memory just because he's not here. His memory. Like he was dead." "Have you thought about having him declared legally dead?" Uncle Jerry asked. And I saw Mom wince. "I mean, it's been over 2 years. For insurance purposes, estate purposes." "I've thought about it," Melissa said quietly. "My lawyer mentioned it, but I'm not ready. I keep hoping." Her voice caught. "Beautiful. Perfect. I keep hoping he'll come home." I set down my wine glass before I could throw it. "What do you think happened?" I asked. My voice came out steady, conversational. "Really, if you had to guess." Melissa looked at me, and for just a second, just a flash, something moved behind her eyes, something cold and calculating. Then it was gone, replaced by confusion and hurt. "I don't know," she said. "I've asked myself that question every day for 2 years. Some kind of breakdown? A crisis we didn't see coming? I don't know." "But you must have theories," I pressed. "You knew him better than anyone. Were there signs? Things he said? Things he did? That make more sense in retrospect?" "What are you getting at?" Mom asked, her voice sharp. I looked at her, at the woman who'd raised Dave and me, who'd loved us equally and fiercely, who'd believed Melissa, because why wouldn't she? What mother wants to think her son's wife is lying? "I'm just trying to understand," I said. 2 years is a long time to have no answers." "We all want answers," Melissa said, and her tone had shifted slightly. Less vulnerable, more defensive. "But sometimes we don't get them. Sometimes we have to live with uncertainty." "Is that what you're doing? Living with uncertainty? What else can I do?" I almost laughed. Almost told her exactly what she could do, what she had been doing, how she'd turned uncertainty into a revenue stream and my brother into content. Instead, I said, you could hire a private investigator, really search for him, put up billboards, offer a reward, make noise until someone finds something. Melissa's expression flickered again. "I did that, early on. He found nothing. So hire another one, a better one. If you really wanted to find him, how dare you?" Her voice went sharp, angry. "How dare you imply I don't want to find my own husband? Do you have any idea what this has been like for me? The not knowing, the wondering, the judgment from people who think I must have done something to drive him away?" Mom reached for Melissa's hand again. "He doesn't mean it like that." "Don't I?" I met Melissa's eyes, held them. "I'm just saying that if it were me, if my wife disappeared, I wouldn't rest until I found her. I wouldn't accept uncertainty. I wouldn't build a life around her absence. That's because you've never had to live this nightmare. Melissa's voice rose, tears starting to spill. You've never had to wake up alone every morning wondering if today's the day you'll get the call that they found a body. You've never had to explain to your friends, your family, your coworkers, why your husband vanished without a word. You've never... She stopped, pressed her hands to her face, shoulders shaking. The performance was extraordinary. I could see why it worked so well online. The raw emotion, the visible pain, the vulnerability that made you want to comfort her, protect her, believe her. Uncle Jerry looked uncomfortable. Mom looked furious at me. I think you should apologize, Mom said quietly. I looked at Melissa, crying into her hands at my mother's dining room table, and I thought about Dave. About the videos where he cried too, alone in that motel room, with no one to comfort him or defend him or tell him everything would be okay. I thought about Richard, dying in hospice, using his last weeks to make sure someone would know the truth. I thought about the hard drive in my car, packed with evidence and recordings and the systematic documentation of 26 months of fraud. I'm sorry, I said to Melissa. You're right. I don't know what it's like, but I do now. I thought. I know exactly what it's like. Melissa lowered her hands, wiped her eyes. I know you miss him too, she said, softer now. I know this is hard for everyone. I wish we could all support each other instead of fighting. You're right, I said again. I'm sorry for pushing. We finished dinner in uncomfortable near silence. Uncle Jerry trying too hard to lighten the mood with stories about his golf game. Melissa picked at her dessert, some elaborate chocolate thing that probably cost $40 from the bakery downtown. Mom kept shooting me, disapproving looks. I played the role of chastened brother, apologetic and subdued, and I watched Melissa relax, satisfied that she'd controlled the narrative once again. When dinner finally ended, when Uncle Jerry left and I started helping clear the table, Melissa pulled on her coat. I should go, she said to Mom. Early day tomorrow. Of course, sweetie. Thank you for coming. And for the dessert, it was delicious. They hugged, long and warm, the kind of hug family gives. Melissa turned to me. I hope you know I don't hold anything against you. You're grieving too. I know, I said. Drive safe. I watched her walk to her car, watched her drive away in that sensible Honda with its coexist bumper sticker. Then I turned to find Mom staring at me. What was that about? She asked. I told you. I just wanted answers. By attacking her? By implying she hasn't done enough to find her own husband? I wasn't attacking. Yes, you were. And I don't know what's gotten into you. But Melissa is family. She's suffering. And she doesn't need you making it worse. I looked at my mother, at the woman who'd taught me about fairness and truth and standing up for what's right. And I wanted so badly to tell her everything, to pull out my laptop and show her the videos, play her the recordings, prove to her that the woman she'd just comforted was a monster. But I couldn't. Not yet. Because Mom was right about one thing. Melissa was family. And when you expose a monster that your family has embraced, you have to be certain, you have to have proof, so overwhelming, so undeniable, that there's no room for doubt or alternative interpretation. You have to build a case so airtight that even love can't rationalize it away. I'm sorry, I said to Mom. I'll apologize to her next week. Mom's expression softened slightly. She's been through enough. We all have. I nodded, hugged her goodbye, and walked to my car. Once inside, I pulled out my phone and texted the number Frank had given me. I'm coming tomorrow. Afternoon, like you said. I need to see him. The response came almost immediately. Room 14. He'll be waiting. I sat there in my mother's driveway, the house lit up warm behind me, and I thought about Dave waiting in a room the size of a prison cell. Tomorrow I'd drive to Carson Falls. Tomorrow I'd see what 2 years had done to my brother. But tonight, I'd watch the rest of the videos, read the rest of the evidence, prepare myself for whatever came next. Because Melissa thought she'd won, thought she'd built a narrative so solid that nothing could crack it. She had no idea that the ghost she'd created was about to learn how to haunt back. And unlike her stories, this one would end with the truth. Monday morning came too slowly and too fast at the same time. I'd spent the night watching the remaining videos, reading through more financial documents, building a mental map of Melissa's lies, until the architecture of her fraud was as familiar to me as my own apartment. But none of that prepared me for driving to Carson Falls. I left at 10, telling my boss I had a family emergency, which wasn't a lie, just not the kind he'd imagine. The drive took me north through increasingly rural landscape, the city giving way to farmland and forest, the kind of empty spaces where people go when they want to disappear, or when they're made to disappear. The highway was mostly empty on a Monday morning, just me and a few semis hauling goods to small towns that probably didn't have much use for overnight delivery. I kept the radio off, drove in silence, and tried to prepare myself for what I was about to see. Dave had been in that motel room for 26 months. 783 days of isolation and manipulation and slow psychological erosion. What did that do to a person? What would be left of my brother after 2 years of being buried alive? The videos had shown me his decline, the weight loss, the exhaustion, the flat affect that came from depression settling in like a permanent resident. But videos were one thing. Seeing him in person, breathing the same air, being in the same physical space after all this time, that would be different. That would be real. I passed the sign for Carson Falls around noon. Population 847, the sign said. Small enough that everyone knew everyone. Small enough that a stranger living in the motel for 2 years should have been remarkable. But maybe that was the point. Maybe Melissa had chosen this place specifically because it was the kind of town where people minded their own business, where a man paying cash for a room month after month would be seen as eccentric but not worth investigating. The Highway Rest Motel sat just off the main road, exactly as it had looked in the photos. Single story, faded blue paint, a neon vacancy sign that flickered even in daylight. There were maybe 8 rooms total, and only 2 cars in the lot besides mine when I pulled in. Room 14 was at the far end, away from the office. Of course it was. I sat in my car for a moment, hands on the steering wheel, and tried to breathe normally. My heart was doing this thing where it felt too big for my chest, like it was trying to escape through my rib cage. This was Dave, my twin, my other half, the person I'd known longer than anyone else alive. But it had been 26 months. 26 months of him living in a reality I couldn't imagine, while I lived in a reality built on lies. Would he blame me for not finding him sooner? For believing Melissa? For all those Sunday dinners where I sat across from his wife and never questioned hard enough, never pushed far enough, never trusted my gut when it told me something was wrong? The motel office door opened, and a man stepped out. Late 60s, weathered face, wearing jeans and a flannel shirt that had seen better decades. He looked at my car, then at me, and nodded once. Frank. I got out of the car. You look just like him, Frank said as I approached. First time I saw him, I thought you were the same person. Twins, right? Identical, I said, and my voice came out rough. Is he? He's in his room. Been waiting since yesterday. I told him you called, and he hasn't left since. Frank pulled out a cigarette, lit it, took a long drag. I'm going to tell you something before you go in there, and I need you to listen. Really listen. I nodded. Your brother's alive. He's functional. He eats. He sleeps. He talks. Hasn't been okay for a long time. Frank's eyes were sharp despite the weathered face. 2 years in that room did things to him. And I don't just mean the obvious stuff, the weight loss, the nightmares, the way he flinches when a car door slams. I mean the deeper stuff, The way he doesn't trust anything anymore. The way he checks the locks 5 times before he can sleep. The way he sometimes forgets what day it is, because they all blend together when you're trapped. I understand, I said. No, you don't. Frank's voice was gentle but firm. You can't understand until you see it. Until you watch someone you love realize they've been systematically destroyed by someone they trusted. Until you see what that level of betrayal does to a person's ability to believe in anything good. He took another drag of his cigarette. Dave talks about you a lot. Says you're the better half. Says you always did the right thing. So I'm asking you now. You going to do the right thing? Or you going to make this worse? I'm going to get him out, I said. I'm going to expose what she did, and I'm going to make sure she faces consequences. Frank studied me for a long moment. Then he nodded. Room 14. Knock first. He's expecting you, but knock anyway. Gives him time to prepare. I walked along the exterior corridor, past rooms with drawn curtains and doors that looked like they hadn't been opened in years. The motel smelled like cigarette smoke and cleaning chemicals and desperation. Room 14's door was blue, the paint peeling at the edges. I knocked. For a moment, nothing. Then I heard movement inside. Footsteps approaching slowly, like someone who'd learned to be cautious about everything. The lock turned, then another lock, then a chain. The door opened, and there was Dave. My brother, my twin, my mirror image. Except he wasn't anymore. The videos had prepared me for some of it, the weight loss, the too long hair, the exhaustion carved into his features. But they hadn't prepared me for the way he looked at me, like he was seeing a ghost. Like I was the one who disappeared and he was trying to convince himself I was real. Hey, twin, I said, and my voice broke on the words. Dave's face crumpled. Just completely fell apart. And then he was grabbing me, pulling me into the room, holding on to me like I was the only solid thing in a world that had gone liquid and unstable. I held him back just as hard, feeling how thin he'd gotten, how his shoulders were all sharp angles under his shirt, how his whole body was shaking. You're here, he kept saying into my shoulder. You're actually here. I thought I kept thinking you wouldn't come. That Richard didn't find you, that the package got lost, that something would go wrong and you'd never know. I'm here, I said. I'm here, and I'm not leaving without you. We stood like that in the doorway until Frank walked past and quietly suggested we might want to take it inside. I kicked the door shut behind us and we moved to the bed, the only place to sit in the tiny room, and just held on to each other while Dave cried. The room was exactly as it had appeared in the videos. Small, depressing, with wallpaper that might have been white once but had yellowed to the color of old teeth, a bed with a faded comforter, a dresser with a TV that looked like it was from the 90s, a bathroom with a door that hung crooked. This had been Dave's entire world for 26 months. When he finally pulled back, wiping his face with the back of his hand, I got my first real look at what this place had done to him. The physical changes were obvious. He'd lost at least 30 pounds. His face, all planes and angles where it used to be fuller. His hair hung past his collar, unwashed and unkempt. His clothes were the same ones from the videos, worn until they were shapeless. But it was his eyes that destroyed me. Dave's eyes had always been bright, alive with intelligence and humor and that particular brand of optimism that made him believe people were fundamentally good. He'd been the twin who saw the best in everyone, who gave second chances, who believed in happy endings. Those eyes were gone. The ones looking at me now were cautious, guarded, with a flatness that came from having hope systematically beaten out of you. You watched the videos, he said. Statement. Not question. All of them. Then you know. I know what she did. What she's still doing. Dave nodded slowly, then stood up and walked to the window. He pulled the curtain back just slightly, peering out at the parking lot like he was checking for something. Then he let it fall and turned back to me. I used to do that every time a car pulled in, he said. For the first year, every time I heard an engine, I'd think it was her. Think maybe she was coming to tell me it was over, that I could go home. Then, I'd see it was just Frank, or a guest, and I'd have to talk myself down from the panic attack. Panic attacks? Started around month 8. Frank had to call a doctor once because I couldn't breathe. Thought I was having a heart attack. Dave's laugh was hollow. Turns out it was just my body's way of processing the fact that I'd voluntarily locked myself in a cage and handed the key to someone who threw it away. He sat back down on the bed, but not close to me, like he'd forgotten how to be physically near another person. Do you hate me? He asked quietly. What? No. Dave, why would I? Because I did this. I agreed to disappear. I believed her lies. I let her trap me. His voice was getting tight. If I'd just said no from the beginning, if I'd been smarter, less greedy, less... Stop. I moved closer, made him look at me. She manipulated you. She lied to you. She trapped you, using your own trust and decency against you. That's not your fault. Isn't it? I'm the one who said yes. I'm the one who thought $100,000 was worth 2 years of my life. I'm the one who was stupid enough to... You weren't stupid. You were in love with someone who turned out to be a monster. That's not the same thing. Dave's eyes filled with tears again. I loved her. That's the worst part. Even now, even knowing everything, part of me still stopped, shook his head violently. God, I'm pathetic. You're not pathetic. You're human. And what she did to you, that kind of betrayal, doesn't just go away because you understand it intellectually. We sat in silence for a moment. Outside, I could hear traffic on the highway, the distant sound of Frank's TV through the wall, the normal sounds of the world continuing while we sat in this room where time had stopped. I read the financial records, I said finally. Saw the social media posts, the book deal negotiations, everything. She's made almost $1 million off you. Dave's expression didn't change. I know. Richard showed me most of it before he got too sick. Every post, every sponsorship, every dollar earned by selling the story of the husband who abandoned her. He looked at me. You want to know the really sick part? Some of her posts are actually good, insightful, helpful, even. If you didn't know the truth, you'd think she was genuinely working through trauma. She's convinced herself that she's the victim in this. She's not the victim. I know that. You know that. But she's convinced hundreds of thousands of people otherwise. And when the truth comes out, if it comes out, how many of them are going to believe it? How many are going to think I'm just another abusive ex-husband trying to destroy his victim's credibility? The question hung in the air between us. We have evidence, I said. Videos, recordings, financial documents, which could all be dismissed as fabricated, or taken out of context, or explained away as the desperate actions of a guilty man. Dave stood up again, started pacing the 3 steps his room allowed. I've thought about this every day for months, played out every scenario, and they all end the same way, her word against mine, her audience against my evidence, her victim narrative against my truth. So what do you want to do? He stopped pacing, turned to face me. And for the first time since I'd arrived, I saw something familiar in his eyes. Not the old optimism, but something harder, clearer. Determination. I want her to confess, he said. Not in court, not to lawyers, not in some settlement negotiation where she can spin the story. I want her to confess publicly, on camera, in her own words. I want her followers to hear the truth from her mouth. And how do we make that happen? Dave's smile was not kind. We give her exactly what she wants. We offer her the ending to her story that she's been building toward for 2 years. I don't understand. She's built a narrative about the abandoned wife learning to thrive independently, right? The woman who found strength in her husband's absence? Well, What's the perfect ending to that story? I thought about it. About the arc Melissa had been constructing. The journey she'd been documenting. Closure, I said slowly. Confirmation that he's really gone. Exactly. Dave's eyes were bright now, alive in a way they hadn't been since I'd arrived. She wants me declared legally dead. Has wanted it for months, but couldn't pull the trigger because it would look bad to her followers. Too soon. Too mercenary. But if I'd been gone for 3 years instead of 2, if there was evidence that something had happened to me, then it would be the natural next step in her healing journey. You want to give her that evidence. I want to give her enough rope to hang herself with. Dave sat back down next to me. Here's what I'm thinking. You go back. You act normal. You apologize to her for Sunday dinner. Tell her you were out of line. You rebuild trust. Make her think you're on her side. Okay. And then, in a few weeks, you find something. A clue. Evidence that suggests I might have... He paused, swallowed hard. Evidence that suggests I might have killed myself. The words landed like a physical blow. Dave. It's perfect. It gives her the ending she needs. The tragic conclusion to her story of survival. The ultimate validation of her victim narrative. And it gives us the opportunity to document her reaction, to see what she does when she thinks she's finally free. You want her to incriminate herself. I want her to show her true face. Not the one she performs for followers, but the real one. The one that calculates and schemes and counts money while pretending to grieve. Dave grabbed my hand, squeezed it tight. If we can get her on camera, real camera, not social media performance camera, reacting to my supposed death, we'll have everything we need. Her relief, her celebration, her mask slipping. That's dangerous. If we're wrong, if she actually does feel remorse. She won't. Dave's voice was absolutely certain. She won't because she can't. People like Melissa don't feel remorse. They feel inconvenience. They feel frustration when their plans don't work. But remorse, guilt, that requires seeing other people as real, as mattering. And I stopped being real to her the moment I signed the paperwork and drove to this motel. I looked at my brother at what 2 years in this room had taught him about human nature, and I saw that he was probably right. Okay, I said, we do it your way, but you're coming home today, right now. You're not spending another night in this place. Dave shook his head. Not yet. If I leave now, if anyone sees us together, it ruins everything. I need to stay disappeared a little longer, just until we're ready. Dave, I've survived 26 months. I can survive a few more weeks, especially knowing there's an end in sight. He squeezed my hand again. But I need you to promise me something. Anything. Don't tell Mom. Not yet. Not until it's over. She deserves to know you're alive. And she will know. Soon. But if you tell her now, she'll react. She'll confront Melissa or act differently around her. And Melissa will notice. Everything depends on Melissa thinking she's won. Thinking she's safe. I wanted to argue. Wanted to tell him that our mother had been grieving for 26 months and deserved to know her son was alive. But he was right. Melissa was smart, observant. Any change in the dynamic would alert her. Okay, I said finally, but the second this is over, the second we have what we need, you're coming home. Deal. We sat there in that terrible room for another hour, planning. Dave showed me the recordings he'd made of Melissa's visits, played me audio that made my blood boil. We went through the evidence Richard had compiled, refined our strategy, mapped out the next few weeks. And slowly, as we talked, I started to see glimpses of my brother emerging from the shell that trauma had built around him. Not fully, maybe never fully again, but enough to remind me who he'd been before Melissa decided to bury him alive. When I finally stood to leave, Dave walked me to the door. "Thank you," he said, "for believing me, for coming, for not giving up." "You're my twin," I said simply. "There's no version of reality where I give up on you." We hugged again, and this time it felt less desperate, more like hope. I drove away from the Highway Rest Motel with my brother still inside room 14, but I wasn't leaving him behind. I was going to war for him. And Melissa had no idea what was coming. The drive back from Carson Falls felt longer than the drive there, even though I knew intellectually it was the same 43 minutes of highway and farmland. But everything was different now. I'd seen Dave, touched him, confirmed he was real and alive and damaged but surviving. And I'd agreed to lie to everyone I loved while we set a trap for the woman who'd destroyed him. By the time I pulled into my apartment parking lot, the winter sun was already setting, painting everything in shades of orange and purple that would have been beautiful if I could feel anything besides the cold weight of what came next. I sat in my car for a moment, engine off, and pulled out my phone. Melissa's number was still in my contacts, right there under the M's, between Mom and Mike from gym. Normal, casual, like she was just another person in my life instead of a monster I was planning to expose. I typed, "Hey, I wanted to apologize for Sunday. I was out of line. You've been nothing but patient with all of us, and I took my frustration about Dave out on you. I'm sorry." My thumb hovered over the send button. This was it, the beginning of the performance. Once I sent this, I'd be committed to weeks of pretending I didn't know the truth. Weeks of looking Melissa in the eye and smiling, while every cell in my body screamed to expose her. Dave's voice echoed in my head. "Don't let this make you cruel. Don't let it poison you the way it's poisoned everything it's touched." I pressed send. The response came faster than I expected. Maybe she'd been waiting for it. Maybe she'd been wondering if Sunday's confrontation had cracked something open that she'd need to contain. "Thank you for saying that. I know you're hurting too. We all are. Want to grab coffee this week? I think it would help to talk." Coffee, just the two of us. Exactly what Dave had predicted. "She'll want to rebuild trust," he'd said as I was leaving. "She'll want to make sure you're back in line. That Sunday was just a blip. She can't afford to have you asking questions or making Mom doubt her." I typed back, "Coffee? Sounds good. Wednesday afternoon? Wednesday. Wednesday afternoon. Wednesday. Wednesday afternoon. Perfect. The cafe on Harbor Street? 2 p.m.? See you then." I sat there staring at the exchange, at how normal it looked. Just two people making plans. Just a brother-in-law and sister-in-law maintaining family bonds. Nothing about the fact that I was planning to destroy her. Nothing about the fact that she'd already destroyed Dave. Tuesday passed in a fog. I went to work, answered emails, attended meetings, smiled and nodded and performed normalcy, while my mind was 43 minutes north in a motel room where my brother was probably pacing 3 steps in each direction, counting down the days until he could breathe freely again. I'd promised him I wouldn't tell Mom, but that didn't stop her from calling. "Sweetheart, I wanted to check on you," she said Tuesday evening, her voice warm and concerned. "You seemed off on Sunday. Is everything okay?" "I'm fine, Mom. Just stressed about work." "Are you sure? Because the way you went after Melissa, that wasn't like you." I closed my eyes, pressed my palm against my forehead. "I know. I already apologized to her. We're getting coffee tomorrow to clear the air." "Oh, good. I'm glad." Relief flooded her voice. She was so worried that she'd upset you somehow. You know how she is always blaming herself when things go wrong. Yes, I thought. I know exactly how she is. She's been through enough. Mom continued, "We all have. And I think we need to start accepting that Dave might not be coming back, that we might need to find closure in other ways." "What do you mean?" A pause. Then, Melissa mentioned possibly having a memorial service, Nothing official, just family and close friends. A chance to say goodbye, to acknowledge that he's gone, even if we don't know the details. She asked what I thought, and I told her I'd think about it. My hands tightened on the phone. A memorial service for my brother who was alive, while Melissa stood at the front and accepted condolences and probably recorded the whole thing for content. That seems premature, I said, keeping my voice level. It's been over 2 years, honey. At some point, we have to face reality. What if he comes back? What if he's out there somewhere and sees that we gave up on him? Mom sighed. Then we apologize and celebrate. But we can't put our lives on hold forever, waiting for something that might never happen. Melissa needs closure. We all do. I wanted to scream. Wanted to tell her that the only closure Melissa needed was the kind that came with handcuffs and criminal charges. That Dave wasn't lost, he was stolen. That every tear Melissa had cried at our Sunday dinners was performance art designed to cover up fraud and psychological torture. But I'd promised Dave. Just don't make any decisions yet, okay? I said. Give it a little more time. Okay, sweetheart. I'll wait. But think about what I said. Sometimes closure isn't about giving up. It's about choosing to heal. We hung up, and I sat in my dark apartment thinking about how many different kinds of closure there could be. The kind Mom was talking about: acceptance, healing, moving forward. And the kind I was planning: exposure, justice, truth that burned everything down to get to solid ground. Wednesday arrived gray and cold. The kind of January day where the sky never quite commits to being anything. I left work early, drove to Harbor Street, found parking near the cafe Melissa had suggested. It was one of those aggressively trendy places with exposed brick and reclaimed wood and a menu that offered 7 different kinds of milk alternatives. The kind of place where Melissa probably posted Instagram stories with her overpriced latte and captions about self-care. I was 10 minutes early. Ordered a regular coffee black, no pretense, and found a table near the window where I could see her arrive. She pulled up at exactly 2 p.m. in her white Honda, parked, checked her reflection in the rearview mirror before getting out. Even from a distance, I could see her taking a breath, settling her expression into something appropriately vulnerable. The performance began before she even walked through the door. She spotted me immediately, smiled sadly, and made her way over. She was wearing yoga pants and an oversized sweater, her hair in a messy bun that probably took 20 minutes to achieve. The outfit said, "I'm not trying, I'm just surviving," while actually being carefully calculated for maximum sympathy. "Hey," she said, sliding into the chair across from me. "Thanks for meeting me. Of course, I owed you an apology in person, not just over text." She waved a hand dismissively. "You don't owe me anything. I know Sunday was hard. I know this whole situation is hard on everyone." A barista called out a complicated drink, ordered something with oat milk and caramel, and probably cost more than Dave's daily food budget. Melissa got up to grab it, and I watched her interact with the barista. Warm smile, easy laugh, the kind of effortless charm that made people like her immediately. She'd been using that charm to rob my brother for 26 months. "So," she said, settling back into her seat with her elaborate coffee, "I wanted to talk to you about something. Something I've been thinking about for a while now." Here it was. The real reason for this meeting. "I think it's time we started accepting that Dave is gone," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "Not giving up hope completely, but facing reality, moving forward. Mom mentioned you'd been thinking about a memorial service." "Not just that." Melissa wrapped her hands around her cup, a gesture that looked comforting and vulnerable. "I've been talking to a lawyer about having him declared legally dead. It's been over 2 years. There's been no contact, no sightings, no activity on his accounts. Legally, I can petition the court." I took a sip of my coffee to buy time, to keep my expression neutral when what I wanted to do was flip the table. "That seems final," I said carefully. "It is final. That's the point." She leaned forward slightly. "I can't live in limbo forever. I can't keep pretending he's going to walk through the door someday. And practically speaking, there are financial issues. Insurance policies that won't pay out without a death certificate. His student loans that are still accruing interest. Assets that are frozen because we're technically still married, but he's not here to sign anything. Assets. She said it so smoothly, so reasonably. Like this was about practical concerns, instead of unlocking the final pieces of money she could extract from Dave's disappearance. I understand, I said, but is there any way to wait a little longer? Just to be sure? La. My gnome to resting to signed. Just to be sure. My gnome to resting to signed. Just to be sure. Where I. Just to signed. Just to be sure. Just to be sure. Melissa's expression shifted just slightly, just enough. A flash of frustration quickly masked by patient understanding. I've waited 2 years. How much longer is enough? 3 years? 5? 10? She shook her head. I'm 32 years old. I can't put my entire life on hold indefinitely for someone who clearly doesn't want to be found. What if he does want to be found, but can't? What if something happened to him? Then he's gone either way. Her voice was soft, but absolute. Whether he left voluntarily or something happened to him, the result is the same. He's not here. And I need to accept that and move on. I watched her face, looking for any hint of the woman Dave had described in his videos. The one who trapped him deliberately, who'd lied to his face month after month, who'd counted the money she made off his suffering. But all I saw was a woman who seemed genuinely tired, genuinely ready to close this chapter. The performance was that good. I wanted to tell you first, Melissa continued, before I talk to your mom. Because I know this is going to be hard for her. But I think part of the reason I'm stuck is because I keep trying to protect everyone else's feelings instead of taking care of myself. And my therapist says that's not healthy. Of course, she had a therapist, probably one she talked about online, another prop in her healing narrative. When are you planning to file? I asked. Soon. The next few weeks, maybe. I need to gather some documentation. Talk to the lawyer about the specific requirements. She looked at me with those wide, earnest eyes. I'm hoping you'll support me on this, that you'll help me explain to your mom why this is necessary. This was the test. The moment where she'd see if Sunday had been a temporary blip or a permanent crack in my trust. I reached across the table and put my hand over hers. I'll support you, I said. You're right. You can't live in limbo forever. And if this is what you need to heal, then we should all support that. The relief that flooded her face was immediate and genuine. Not relief that I believed her story. Relief that I was back under control. Thank you, she said, squeezing my hand. That means so much. I was worried that Sunday had damaged our relationship permanently. Your family, I said. And the words tasted like ash. Nothing's going to change that. We talked for another 20 minutes. Surface-level stuff, her yoga class, a new restaurant she wanted to try, speculation about whether Uncle Jerry would actually take that Alaska cruise. Normal conversation between normal family members. And the whole time, I was thinking about Dave in that motel room, about the recordings he'd made, about the evidence we'd compiled. About the trap we were setting. When we finally stood to leave, Melissa hugged me. A real hug. Warm and tight, and seemingly heartfelt. I'm so glad we did this, she said. I was worried I was losing you too. You're not losing me, I said into her hair. But you're going to lose everything else, I thought. I called Dave from my car as soon as Melissa drove away. He answered on the first ring. How'd it go? Exactly like you said. She wants to have you declared legally dead. Soon. Perfect. That's perfect. I could hear the grim satisfaction in his voice. Did she give you a timeline? Next few weeks. She needs to gather documentation first. Which gives us time to plant the evidence. To make it look like there's a reason to declare me dead. instead of just missing. I gripped the steering wheel. Dave, are you sure about this? Once we do this, we can't take it back. If something goes wrong, nothing's going to go wrong. His voice was steady, certain in a way it hadn't been when I first arrived at the motel. We're going to give her exactly what she wants. Evidence that I'm dead. Evidence that she can use to close out my life and collect whatever's left to collect. And then we watch what she does with it. How she reacts when she thinks no one's watching. How fast she moves to monetize my death. He paused. Richard left me a camera system. Small, professional grade, the kind journalists use for undercover work. He bought it before he got too sick. Said, I might need it someday. I want you to install it in her house. How am I supposed to? She still trusts you now. After today, she trusts you completely. Tell her you want to help pack up my things. Tell her it's too hard for her to do alone, that you want to be there for her. She'll let you in. And while you're there, you place the cameras. My stomach turned over. Where? Living room, bedroom, anywhere she might go to make phone calls or record content when she thinks she's alone. We need to catch her real reaction, not her performance. This feels like we're becoming like her. Manipulating, deceiving. We're not like her. Dave's voice went hard. She destroyed someone who loved her for profit. We're documenting someone who deserves to be exposed. There's a difference. Dave's a pleek dom. Was there? I wanted to believe there was. Wanted to believe that deception in service of truth was fundamentally different from deception in service of fraud. But sitting in my car, outside a trendy coffee shop, planning to bug my sister-in-law's house, the line felt thinner than I wanted to admit. Okay, I said finally. I'll do it. But Dave, after this is over, after we expose her, I need you to talk to someone, a real therapist, someone who can help you process all of this. 80 and 7, zusammen with now. We find the someone, a bell to getting of court, and completed common too. I will, I promise. His voice softened. I know this has changed me. I know I'm not the same person I was before. But I'm trying to channel that change into something productive instead of letting it destroy me completely. I love you, twin. Love you too. Now go home and get some rest. We've got work to do. That night, I couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about the cameras Dave wanted me to install, about watching Melissa in her private moments, documenting her without her knowledge. It was necessary. I knew it was necessary, but it still felt like crossing a line that would leave marks. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. A text from Melissa. Thank you again for today. It meant more than you know. I've been feeling so alone in this, and knowing you support me makes all the difference. You're a good man. Dave was lucky to have you as a brother. I stared at that message for a long time. Dave was lucky to have you as a brother. Past tense. Like he was already gone. Like she'd already buried him and was just waiting for the paperwork to make it official. I thought about Dave in that motel room, reading messages like this while she told him she loved him and just needed a little more time. I thought about Richard dying in hospice, using his last weeks to make sure someone would know the truth. I thought about my mother, preparing herself emotionally for a memorial service for a son who was alive. And I typed back, anytime. That's what family is for. Then I opened my laptop and started researching hidden cameras, professional grade, the kind that looked like everyday objects, the kind that could document the truth when someone thought no one was watching. Dave was right. We needed evidence that couldn't be dismissed or explained away. Evidence of Melissa's real face, not the one she performed for audiences. And if getting that evidence meant becoming someone I didn't quite recognize, someone who could lie and manipulate and plant cameras in his sister-in-law's house, then that's who I'd become. For Dave. For the truth. For the closure that came from justice instead of acceptance. The shopping cart on my laptop screen filled with tiny cameras disguised as phone chargers, picture frames, alarm clocks, tools for documenting reality when performance was everywhere. Outside my window, the city slept. But I was wide awake, planning the next scene in a play where everyone was acting except the audience didn't know they were watching. And when the curtain finally fell, Melissa's applause would turn to silence. I just had to make sure I didn't lose myself in the performance before we got there. The package arrived on Thursday. Small, nondescript, the kind of Amazon box that shows up at doorsteps 1,000,000 times a day across the country. Inside, 3 cameras disguised as everyday objects. A digital alarm clock, a phone charger, a small picture frame with a stock photo of a beach sunset. Each one contained a high-definition camera with night vision, motion activation, and wireless transmission to a secure cloud server. The kind of equipment investigative journalists used. The kind that would hold up as evidence in court. The kind that made me feel like I was becoming the thing I hated. I sat at my kitchen table studying the instruction manual, learning how to activate each device, how to position them for optimal coverage, how to access the feeds remotely. It was surprisingly simple. Point, plug in, connect to Wi-Fi. Technology had made surveillance almost effortless. That should have bothered me more than it did. My phone buzzed. Hey, random question. Do you still have any of Dave's old college textbooks? I'm finally going through his office, and I want to donate what I can. Too painful to keep everything. This was it. The opening I needed. I typed back, I might have a few. Want me to come over and help you sort through stuff? I know that can't be easy to do alone. Thanks for watching. And if you whine, and if you whine, and if you whine, this would be an come on Anders. The response came almost immediately. Would you? That would be amazing. I've been putting it off because it's so overwhelming. Tomorrow afternoon? Works for me. 2 p.m.? Perfect. Thank you so much. You're a lifesaver. A lifesaver. The irony was suffocating. I spent Thursday night rehearsing. Stood in front of my bathroom mirror and practiced looking sympathetic, looking helpful, looking like someone who wasn't planning to bug his sister-in-law's house. The face that looked back at me was my own, but also Dave's identical features, different lives, separated by 43 minutes and 26 months of lies. Don't let this make you cruel, I whispered to my reflection, repeating Dave's words like a mantra. Don't let it poison you. But I was already poisoned, wasn't I? Already infected by the knowledge of what Melissa had done. Already willing to deceive and manipulate and cross lines I'd never imagined crossing. The question wasn't whether I was being poisoned. The question was whether the poison was medicine or just making me sick in a different way. Friday afternoon, I pulled up to the house Dave and Melissa had bought 3 years ago. It was a nice place, modest but well-maintained, with a small front yard and a porch with 2 chairs that I'd sat in dozens of times during summer barbecues and lazy Sunday afternoons. Back when Dave was still here, back when this house felt like a home instead of a crime scene. Melissa opened the door before I could knock, smiling warmly. She was wearing leggings and one of Dave's old college sweatshirts. Her hair pulled back, no makeup. The outfit said, I'm emotionally raw, but being brave, while also serving as a visual reminder of Dave's absence. She was literally wrapped in his clothes, performing grief through wardrobe. Come in, she said, stepping aside. I made coffee. Figured we'd need it. The house looked different than I remembered. She'd redecorated. New throw pillows on the couch. New artwork on the walls, a different rug in the living room. Small changes, but enough to erase Dave's presence, to transform the space from their house to her house. It looks good in here, I said, setting down my bag, the one that contained the cameras, hidden among actual college textbooks I dug out of storage. Thanks. I've been slowly updating things, trying to make it feel like mine, like I can exist here without him. She poured coffee into 2 mugs, handed me one. His office is upstairs. I haven't touched it much. It's probably the hardest room in the house for me. We climbed the stairs, and I noticed more changes. New photos on the wall, pictures of Melissa with friends, with our mother. Solo shots from what looked like hiking trips and yoga retreats. Dave had been systematically edited out of the visual narrative of this house. She opened the door to his office, and the smell hit me first. Dave's cologne, faint but still present after 2 years. Old books and coffee and that specific scent that was just him. Melissa noticed my reaction. I know, it still smells like him. I keep the door closed most of the time because it's too much. The room was exactly as Dave had left it. Desk with his laptop closed, dusty. Bookshelves crammed with engineering textbooks and sci-fi novels. A corkboard covered with photos, concert tickets, random receipts that had seemed important at the time. A whole life frozen in place. I don't even know where to start, Melissa said, her voice cracking slightly. Every item has a memory attached. Every book reminds me of conversations we had. How do you sort through someone's entire existence and decide what stays and what goes? I looked at her, at the tears forming in her eyes, at the trembling hands holding the coffee mug, and I saw the performance, the carefully calibrated emotion, the vulnerability measured out in exact doses. But I also saw something else. Something that made my stomach turn. She believed it. Not the facts, she knew the facts were lies. But the emotion, the grief, the sense of loss, somewhere along the way. Melissa had convinced herself that what she was feeling was real, that she was entitled to mourn the husband she deliberately buried alive. We'll take it slow, I said gently. One shelf at a time. And if you need to stop, we stop. She nodded, wiped her eyes. Thank you. I don't know what I'd do without you. We worked for an hour, pulling books off shelves, sorting them into piles. Keep, donate, trash. Melissa told stories about various items, this book Dave had loved, that photo from their honeymoon, this pen he'd used to sign their mortgage paperwork. Some of the stories were true. Some were embellished. Some were completely fabricated. I knew because I'd been there, had witnessed the actual events she was rewriting. She was editing the past in real time, creating a version of Dave that fit her narrative. The troubled husband, the distant partner, the man who was probably always planning to leave. I'm going to run downstairs and grab some boxes, she said, after we'd cleared the first bookshelf. We're going to need more than I thought. Take your time, I said. The moment she left, I moved. The alarm clock camera went on the bookshelf, positioned to capture most of the room. I plugged it in, watched the tiny red light blink twice activated. The phone charger went on the desk, angled toward the door and the area where someone would sit. Another blink. The picture frame was trickier. I needed it in the living room, where Melissa would make phone calls or record content for social media, where she'd be herself when she thought no one was watching. I heard her footsteps on the stairs, grabbed a stack of books, and met her in the hallway. Found these boxes in the garage, she said, slightly out of breath. Should be enough. Perfect. Hey, do you mind if I use your bathroom? Of course not. You know where it is. I went downstairs, made a show of going to the bathroom, then quickly moved to the living room. The picture frame went on the bookshelf next to the couch, facing out toward the coffee table, where I'd seen Melissa set up her phone for recording sessions. I adjusted it slightly, making sure the angle was right. The red light blinked. 3 cameras, 3 angles, complete coverage of the spaces where Melissa would be most likely to drop her mask. I flushed the toilet for authenticity, washed my hands, and returned upstairs. We worked until the sun started setting, boxing up books and papers, discussing what Dave would have wanted done with various items. Melissa kept the wedding photos, but not the honeymoon ones. Kept the expensive watch his parents had given him, but not the cheap one he'd actually worn every day. Kept the things that looked good, that told the right story. that could be photographed for social media posts about letting go. I think I'm going to post about this, she said as we carried the last box downstairs. About the process of sorting through his things. My followers have been asking how I'm handling this stage of grief. Of course they had, because she'd trained them to invest emotionally in her journey, to check in regularly, to feel like they were part of her healing process. Do you think that's healthy? I asked, keeping my voice curious rather than critical. Sharing something so private? Melissa set down the box, turned to face me. I think it's the only thing that keeps me sane. When I share my pain, when people respond with their own stories and their support, it reminds me I'm not alone, that what I'm going through matters. It definitely matters, I said. I just worry about you sometimes, whether processing everything so publicly gives you room to actually feel things privately. She smiled sadly. You sound like my therapist. His one. Is that what your therapist says? Something like that. She encourages me to maintain boundaries between my public processing and my private experience. Melissa shrugged, but honestly, I don't know where one ends and the other begins anymore. The sharing is part of my healing. The audience is part of my support system. I thought about Dave, watching her social media posts from his motel room, seeing his disappearance turned into content, into engagement, into revenue, seeing his wife perform grief while leaving him to rot. That makes sense, I said, because that's what supportive family members said. Melissa's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and something shifted in her expression. Just slightly. Just enough. I have to take this, she said. Work thing. Give me a minute. She walked into the kitchen, and I heard her voice drop to a murmur. Not upset, careful. The tone of someone who doesn't want to be overheard. I pulled out my phone, opened the app that connected to the cameras I'd installed. 3 feeds loaded. Office, desk, living room. All active, all recording. This was really happening. Melissa returned a few minutes later, smiling brightly. Sorry about that. Just coordinating some stuff for next week. No problem. I should probably head out anyway. It's getting late. Thank you again for today. I couldn't have done this without you. She hugged me, and I felt her relax into it. Real relief. Real gratitude. She genuinely believed I was on her side. Anytime, I said. That's what family does. I drove home through darkening streets, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. In my bag, college textbooks I'd actually given Dave years ago. In my phone, access to 3 cameras recording every moment of Melissa's private life. I'd done it. Crossed the line. Become the spy, the deceiver, the person who violated trust for what I believed was a greater good. Was I different from Melissa? She'd manipulated Dave into disappearing for money. I was manipulating Melissa into exposing herself for justice. She'd lied to my family for personal gain. I was lying to my family for truth. But we were both lying, both manipulating, both crossing ethical lines we could never uncross. My phone rang. Dave, did you do it? He asked without preamble. Yeah. 3 cameras, all active. Good, that's good. A pause. How do you feel? Good. Like I need a shower. I know. I'm sorry. I know what I'm asking you to do. Do you? The words came out sharper than I'd intended. Do you know what it's like to hug someone while wearing a wire? To smile and nod while planting surveillance equipment in their house? To become exactly the kind of person we're trying to expose? Silence on the other end. We don't have to do this, Dave said finally. If it's too much, if you can't. No. I pulled over, couldn't drive, and have this conversation at the same time. No, we're doing this. I'm struggling with what it's turning me into. It's turning you into someone who's willing to fight dirty for the truth. That's not the same as what she is. Isn't it? Where's the line, Dave? Where's the line between necessary deception and becoming a monster? The line is intent, he said quietly. She destroyed me for money. We're documenting her for justice. The methods might look similar, but the why makes all the difference. I wanted to believe that. Wanted to believe that the destination justified the journey, that truth could be reached through lies without corrupting the truth itself. When do we plant the evidence? I asked. Soon. I've been working on something with Frank. Letters, mostly. Things that would suggest I was planning something permanent. We'll make it look like someone found them and sent them to you. What kind of letters? Dave's voice went flat. The kind someone writes when they're about to kill themselves, saying goodbye, expressing hopelessness, apologizing for not being strong enough. The words hit like a physical blow. Dave, it's fake. You know it's fake. But it has to be convincing enough that Melissa believes it. Convincing enough that when she files to have me declared dead, there's a paper trail that supports it. And then we watch what she does with it, how she mourns, how she capitalizes, how fast she moves to monetize my death. He paused. The cameras you installed, they're our insurance. Our proof that whatever she does next, whatever grief she performs publicly, the private reality is different. I thought about the feeds on my phone, about Melissa's living room and office, and the spaces where she thought she was alone. I'm watching the feeds now, I said. She's in the living room, setting up her phone on a tripod. Looks like she's about to record something. Then watch, document, see who she really is when she thinks no one's looking. I pulled up the living room feed on my phone. Melissa was arranging herself on the couch, adjusting her hair, checking the lighting. She pressed record on her phone, and her entire demeanor shifted. The tears started immediately. Hi, everyone, she said to the camera, her voice breaking. I'm sorry for being MIA the past few days. I've been doing something really difficult. Today, I went through Dave's office with his brother, sorting his things, deciding what to keep and what to let go. She paused, wiped her eyes. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Every book reminded me of conversations we had. Every photo brought back memories of who we were before everything fell apart. Another pause, more tears. But I'm learning that holding on too tight to the past prevents us from moving into the future. That sometimes love means letting go, even when letting go is the last thing we want to do. She was good. She was really, really good. I kept a few things that meant the most to me. His wedding ring, a book of poetry he read to me on our first anniversary, a photo of us from our honeymoon before the cracks started to show. There it was, the subtle rewriting, the implication that their marriage had been troubled from the start. To anyone out there going through something similar, it's okay to grieve what was and what might have been. It's okay to be angry at the person who left. And it's okay to eventually, slowly, start building a life that doesn't revolve around their absence. She smiled through her tears, brave and vulnerable and absolutely convincing. Thank you all for being here, for supporting me, for reminding me that I'm not alone in this. Your messages mean more than you know. She reached forward, stopped recording, and then everything changed. The tears stopped, just turned off like a faucet. She checked the footage, nodding in satisfaction, then opened her laptop and started typing. I could see her face clearly in the camera feed. No sadness, no grief, just focus, concentration, the face of someone working. She was writing captions, planning posts, scheduling content. The performance was over, and underneath was just business. I watched for another 20 minutes as she worked, her expression neutral, occasionally smiling at something on her screen. At one point, she actually laughed while reading what looked like comments on a previous post. This was her. The real her. Not the grieving widow. Not the abandoned wife. Just a woman who'd found a profitable niche and was working it with professional efficiency. My phone buzzed. A text from Dave. "What's she doing?" I typed back, "Exactly what you said she'd do. Recording grief for content, then turning it off and treating it like a business. Good. Save everything. We're going to need it." I watched Melissa for another hour, until she closed her laptop and went upstairs, presumably to bed. The feeds would keep recording, motion activated, documenting every moment, building a case, creating evidence, preparing for the moment when we'd finally pull back the curtain and show the world who she really was. I drove home through empty streets, thinking about performance and reality, about the distance between what we show the world and who we actually are. Melissa performed grief while planning profit. I performed support while planning exposure. And somewhere in Carson Falls, Dave performed death while planning resurrection. We were all wearing masks, all playing roles. The difference, I told myself, was that when this was over, when the final curtain fell, only one of us would still be lying. I just had to make sure that person wasn't me. The cameras recorded everything. For 5 days, I watched Melissa live 2 lives. The public, one, grief-stricken widow, healing warrior, inspiration to thousands, and the private one, the real one. In public, she posted about her pain, about the difficulty of sorting through Dave's things, about the bravery it took to wake up every morning and choose to keep going. Her followers ate it up. Comments flooded in. "You're so strong. Thank you for sharing your journey. You inspire me every day." In private, she counted money. I watched her through the office camera, sitting at Dave's old desk, spreadsheet open on the laptop. Revenue from Instagram sponsorships in one column, YouTube ad revenue in another, Patreon subscriptions, affiliate marketing, speaking engagement inquiries. She had color-coded it all. Green for secured income, yellow for pending, red for opportunities she'd decided weren't worth pursuing. My brother's disappearance had made her nearly $40,000 in the past month alone. And she was planning for more. On Tuesday night, I watched her take a phone call from her literary agent. "The proposal is strong." The agent's voice came through tinny, but clear on the recording. "Publishers are interested, but they want to know the ending. They want closure. Is he coming back? Is he dead? Is there going to be a resolution they can market?" Melissa paced the living room, and I could see her face clearly in the camera feed. Calculating, considering. "I'm planning to have him declared legally dead," she said. "I've been working with a lawyer on it. We're just waiting for the right moment." "How soon?" "Soon. There are some family dynamics I need to navigate first. His mother, his brother, they're not quite ready, but I'm working on it." "Well, work faster. Publishers want to strike while your audience is engaged. If you wait too long, the moment passes. The story gets stale." "I understand. I'll move things along." After the call ended, Melissa sat on the couch for a long moment, staring at nothing. Then she picked up her phone and started typing. I watched the text appear on my own phone 30 seconds later. "Hey, I've been thinking about what we talked about closure. I think I'm ready to move forward with the legal process. Can we talk soon?" This was it, the moment we'd been waiting for. I called Dave immediately. "She's ready," I said. "She just told her agent she's going to have you declared dead, and now she's reaching out to me about it." "Good." Dave's voice was steady, cold. "Did you watch the call with the agent?" "Every word. She's doing this for the book deal. She needs an ending. And when wants to best in amend. She needs an ending. Then let's give her one. I heard rustling on his end. Frank and I finished the letters. 3 of them. There. He paused. They're convincing. Too convincing, maybe. Reading them back, even knowing they're fake, they made me feel sick. What do they say? What you'd expect. Apologies for not being strong enough. Explanations that don't really explain anything. Goodbyes. His voice went quieter. I wrote them like I was actually planning to. Like I was actually in that headspace. Because that's what we need her to believe. That I couldn't take it anymore. That the motel room finally broke me. My throat tightened. Dave, I'm fine. I'm past that now. But there were nights, plenty of nights, where those letters could have been real. Where I sat in this room and thought about how easy it would be to just stop. To give her what she wanted without even knowing I was doing it. But you didn't. But I didn't. And now those dark nights get turned into ammunition. Poetic justice, right? I wasn't sure justice was the right word. Revenge, maybe. Necessary exposure. But justice felt too clean for what we were doing. How do we get them to Melissa? I asked. We don't. We get them to you. Dave's tone shifted to business mode. Here's the plan. Frank is going to mail them to you. Make it look like someone found them in the motel room after I checked out. An anonymous Good Samaritan who thought my family should know. When? Package goes out tomorrow. Should arrive Thursday. When you get it, you call me first. We coordinate. Then, you call Melissa. You're devastated. You need support. You're afraid of what the letters mean. And she'll comfort you. She'll be the grieving widow who's even stronger than anyone knew. And then, privately, she'll celebrate. She'll see it as the evidence she needs to move forward legally, to give her story the ending it needs. You're sure she won't feel guilty? Won't have second thoughts? Dave laughed, harsh and brittle. I'm absolutely sure. I've spent 2 years learning exactly who my wife is. Trust me, the only thing she'll feel is relief. Wednesday crawled by like a wounded animal. I went to work, attended meetings, smiled and nodded, while my mind was elsewhere. At lunch, I checked the camera feeds. Melissa was at home, doing yoga in the living room, then taking a call with what sounded like a podcast host who wanted to interview her about thriving after abandonment. I think the key is not letting someone else's choices define your worth, she said into the phone, her voice warm and wise. My husband left, but that doesn't mean I'm less valuable as a person. That doesn't mean my life is over. In some ways, it's just beginning. The host made sympathetic noises. That's such a powerful perspective. Our listeners are going to love this. After the call, Melissa did a little victory dance in her living room, actually jumped up and pumped her fist in the air. I saved the footage. That night, I responded to her text from the day before. Sorry for the delay. Yeah, let's talk. Are you free this weekend? Sunday dinner at your mom's? She replied. We can talk after? Sounds good. Another Sunday dinner. Another performance. But this time, I'd be performing to grief, shock, devastation at the letters I hadn't yet received. We were all becoming actors in a play where the audience didn't know they were watching. The package arrived Thursday afternoon, just as Dave had promised. I was at work when I got the delivery notification. Spent the rest of the day unable to focus, watching the clock, counting down the hours until I could go home and open it. Finally, 5 o'clock. I drove home too fast, parked crooked, ran up the stairs to my apartment. The box was waiting by my door. Plain brown packaging, no return address, my name written in unfamiliar handwriting. I brought it inside, set it on my kitchen table, and just stared at it for a moment. Inside this box were letters my brother had written, fake letters, performance letters, words designed to convince my sister-in-law that he'd killed himself, words that could have been real. If Melissa had been just a little more cruel. If Dave had been just a little less stubborn. If those 26 months had broken him completely, instead of just mostly. I called Dave. "It's here," I said. "Open it." I tore open the packaging. Inside were 3 envelopes, slightly worn, like they'd been handled and rehandled. My name on the first one, Mom's name on the second, Melissa's name on the third, and a note, written in what was clearly Frank's handwriting. Found these in room 14 after the guest checked out. Thought his family should have them. Sorry for your loss. The note is a nice touch, I said. Frank's idea. He said it needed to feel authentic, like someone who meant well, but didn't want to get involved. Sam, Dawn. End quote. I opened the envelope addressed to me. Inside, 2 pages of Dave's handwriting. His real handwriting, not faked or disguised. The letter destroyed me. Twin, I don't know how to start this except to say I'm sorry. Sorry for leaving. Sorry for believing her. Sorry for being too weak to fight my way back. By the time you read this, I'll be gone. Really gone. Not the fake gone I've been for the past 2 years. And I need you to know, it's not your fault. It's not Mom's fault. It's mine for being stupid enough to think I could disappear and come back unchanged. The motel room broke something in me. Or maybe it just revealed something that was already broken. Either way, I can't live like this anymore. I can't be this person I've become. Can't face the reality of what my life has turned into. Please tell Mom I love her. Tell her I tried. Tell her the son she raised was good and kind, and the thing I became at the end wasn't her fault. And tell Melissa. The letter stopped there, trailed off mid-sentence, like he'd been too emotional to continue. It was perfect. Devastating and authentic, and exactly what someone would write if they'd given up hope. Even knowing it was fake, even having just talked to Dave, I felt tears burning in my eyes. It's good, I said, my voice thick. Too good. I know. Dave sounded tired. Are you ready for the next part? No, but I'll do it anyway. Call Melissa. Tell her the package came. Tell her you're scared to read the other letters. Ask her to come over. Why ask her over? Because we need her reaction on camera. I want to see her face when she reads her letter, when she realizes what she can do with this. I looked around my apartment. I don't have cameras here. End quote. Yes, you do. Your laptop has a camera. Set it up like you're on a video call. That got disconnected. Angle it toward wherever you'll be sitting. She won't notice. My stomach turned. Another deception. Another violation of trust. Another step down, a path I couldn't seem to stop walking. Okay, I said. I'll call her now. Melissa arrived within 20 minutes. She must have dropped everything, driven straight over, because she was still in gym clothes, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. What happened? She asked, breathless, from taking the stairs too fast. Your message scared me. I'd set up my laptop on the bookshelf, angled toward the couch, camera active and recording. It looked natural, like I'd been working, and just left it there. I got a package, I said, and I didn't have to fake the shakiness in my voice. From someone who says they found it in a motel room in Carson Falls. Melissa's face went carefully blank. There are letters inside. 3 of them. 1 for me, 1 for Mom, 1 for you. Can I see them? I handed her the unopened envelope with her name on it, watched her turn it over in her hands, studying the handwriting. It's his, she whispered. This is Dave's handwriting. She opened it slowly, carefully, like it might disintegrate if she moved too fast, pulled out the pages, and started reading. I couldn't see what Dave had written to her, we'd agreed. I shouldn't read it, that my reaction needed to be genuine. But I watched her face as she read. Shock first, then pain, real pain, or a convincing facsimile. Then something else. Something that flickered across her expression so quickly, I almost missed it. Relief. She lowered the letter, pressed it against her chest. He was going to. He was planning to. What does it say? He says goodbye. Says he can't do this anymore. Says he's sorry. Her voice broke. He says he never stopped loving me, but he can't live with what he's become. The performance was flawless. Tears streaming down her face, body shaking with sobs. If I hadn't known the truth, hadn't seen her turn off the tears after recording content, hadn't watched her celebrate opportunities for profit, I would have believed every moment of it. We have to call someone, I said. The police. We have to. No. She grabbed my arm. Not yet. Let me. I need to process this first. I need to think. Melissa, if he was planning to hurt himself, someone needs to look for him. Someone needs to. It's been 2 years. Her voice was gentle but firm. If he was going to do something, he's already done it. Calling the police now won't change anything except make this a media circus. And your mom, God, your mom can't hear about this from the police. We need to tell her ourselves. We need to prepare her. She was right. Logically, she was right. But I could see the calculation behind her eyes, the awareness that police involvement would complicate things. That investigation would mean questions and scrutiny and potential exposure. Okay, I said, but we tell her soon, at dinner on Sunday. Of course, we'll tell her together. Melissa folded the letter carefully, put it back in the envelope. Can I keep this? I know it's probably evidence or something, but take it. They're all addressed to us. We should each have ours. She nodded, clutching the envelope to her chest. Thank you for calling me, for not going through this alone. She hugged me, and I let her, feeling her body shake with what looked like genuine grief. Over her shoulder, I could see my laptop on the shelf, camera recording everything. After she left, I called Dave. Did you get it? He asked immediately. Every second. She read the letter, cried, then told me we shouldn't call the police yet. Said we need to control the narrative, tell Mom ourselves. She's protecting herself, buying time to figure out how to use this. You were right about the relief. I saw it on her face, just for a second, but it was there. Of course it was there. This is what she's been waiting for. Evidence that I'm gone. Proof that she can move forward legally. Dave paused. Did she ask to keep the letter? Yeah. I let her take it. Perfect. She'll read it over and over. Study it. Figure out how to use it for content. And every time she does, she'll be further confirming what she is. I sat down on my couch, suddenly exhausted. When does this end, Dave? When do we stop playing these games and just expose her? Soon. After Sunday dinner. After we tell Mom. After Melissa files the paperwork to have me declared dead. His voice was hard. I want everything documented. I want her to commit fully to the lie. And then we pull the rug out. And what happens to us? To you and me? After we become the kind of people who do things like this? Silence on the other end. Then, I don't know. I guess we'll find out. I watched the footage of Melissa reading the letter 3 times that night. Studied her expression, looking for cracks in the performance, looking for evidence of the real emotion underneath. What I found was more complicated than I wanted it to be. Yes, there was relief. Yes, there was calculation. Yes, she was already thinking about how to use this. But there was also pain. Real pain. The kind that comes from loving someone and destroying them, and having to live with what you've done. Melissa wasn't a cartoon villain. She wasn't purely evil or completely sociopathic. She was a human being who'd made terrible choices and then built a life around justifying them. Who'd convinced herself that Dave's suffering was necessary, that her profit was deserved, that the ends justified the means? She was me. Not in the specifics, not in the actions, but in the fundamental truth that we'd both decided that our goals were important enough to warrant deception, that the people we were hurting deserved it, or would understand eventually, or were necessary casualties in a larger war. I looked at my reflection in my laptop screen, the camera still recording, still documenting, still building the case we'd used to destroy her, and I saw Dave's face looking back at me. My twin, my other half, the person I was doing this for, the person I was becoming unrecognizable for. "Don't let this make you cruel," he'd said. But it was too late for that. We were both cruel now, both willing to do whatever it took. The only question was whether the cruelty would be worth it when this was over, whether the truth we'd expose would justify the lies we'd told to reach it. I closed my laptop, turned off the lights, and lay in the dark thinking about Sunday dinner, about telling my mother that her son had written suicide notes, about watching Melissa perform grief while I performed shock, about the cameras recording everything, documenting the elaborate theater we'd all become trapped in. Somewhere in Carson Falls, Dave was probably lying awake too, counting down the days until he could stop being a ghost. And Melissa was probably sleeping soundly, dreaming of book deals and sympathetic interviews and the perfect tragic ending to her story. None of us knew yet what the real ending would look like, but it was coming. Ready or not, cruel or kind, true or false, it was coming. Sunday arrived wrapped in fog, the kind of thick gray blanket that makes the whole world feel muffled and distant. I stood in my bathroom at 7 in the morning, staring at my reflection, practicing the face I'd need to wear. Shock, grief, devastation. The face of someone who'd just learned his brother had written goodbye letters before disappearing forever. Not the face of someone who'd helped orchestrate the whole thing. My phone buzzed. "You ready?" "No," I typed back, "but that doesn't matter anymore, does it? Remember, this is the hardest part. After today, it's almost over. Just get through this. Get through this." Like it was a dentist appointment or a difficult work presentation. Not the day I'd break our mother's heart with manufactured evidence of her son's death. I drove to Mom's house at noon, the letters in a folder on my passenger seat. I'd read mine a dozen times now, memorizing the words Dave had written, the careful construction of despair that felt so real it made me sick. Melissa's car was already there when I arrived. Of course it was. She'd want time alone with Mom first, time to set the stage, to position herself as the supportive daughter-in-law about to deliver terrible news. I sat in my car for a moment, watching the house through the fog. Lights on in the kitchen, movement behind the curtains. Normal Sunday afternoon activity in a home that had no idea it was about to be shattered. "Don't let this make you cruel," Dave's voice echoed in my head. But how could it not? How could breaking our mother's heart with lies be anything other than cruel, even if the larger truth we were pursuing was just? I grabbed the folder and walked to the door. Mom opened it before I could knock, her face creased with worry. "Sweetheart, Melissa said you needed to talk to us about something. What's wrong?" Behind her, Melissa stood in the hallway, her expression perfectly calibrated, concerned, supportive, braced for impact. She was wearing a simple black sweater and jeans, her hair pulled back, minimal makeup. The outfit said, "I'm here for emotional support, not attention." "Can we sit down?" I asked, my voice already shaking. Not fake, real trembling, because even though the letters were fabricated, the pain I was about to cause was genuine. We moved to the living room. Mom on the couch, Melissa beside her, me in the armchair across from them. The folder felt like it weighed 100 pounds in my hands. "I got a package on Thursday," I began, "from Carson Falls. Someone said they found it in a motel room after the guest checked out." Mom's hand went to her throat. A motel room. There were letters inside. 3 of them. I pulled them out of the folder with shaking hands. One for me, one for Melissa, one for you. The silence that followed was suffocating. Are they? Mom couldn't finish the sentence. They're from Dave, Melissa said softly, reaching over to take Mom's hand. We think he was staying in that motel. And we think, her voice broke beautifully, we think he was planning to hurt himself. No. Mom stood up abruptly. No. My son wouldn't. He would never. Mom. I held out her letter. You should read it. By Intim, where Heavy said. Endoscrime. Endoscrane. Mom. She took it like it was a live grenade, sat back down slowly, opened the envelope with trembling fingers, pulled out the pages. I watched her face as she read, watched the color drain from her cheeks, watched her lips move silently, forming Dave's words, watched the moment she understood what she was holding. No, she whispered. No, no, no. The sound that came out of her was inhuman, a keening wail that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than her lungs, deeper than her body, the sound of a mother confronting the death of her child. Melissa moved immediately, wrapping her arms around Mom, making soothing sounds, holding her while she fell apart. And I sat there, watching my mother's world collapse, knowing I'd helped build the bomb that destroyed it. We don't know for sure, I said, the words ash in my mouth. The letters, don't they trail off? They don't explicitly say what he was planning. Maybe he changed his mind. Maybe he's still out there. Mom looked up at me with eyes that had aged a decade in the past 5 minutes. You don't believe that? I want to believe it, but you don't. She looked down at the letter again, tears dripping onto the pages. He says goodbye. He says he's sorry. He says, her voice broke. He says he tried to be strong enough, but he wasn't. Melissa's face was buried in Mom's shoulder, her body shaking with sobs. The performance was extraordinary. I couldn't see her expression, but her grief seemed absolutely real. Maybe some of it was real. Maybe she'd loved Dave once, before she decided to destroy him. Maybe some part of her was genuinely mourning what she'd done to him. Or maybe she was just that good at lying. What do we do? Mom asked. Do we call the police? Should we go to Carson Falls and look for him? I already called the motel, Melissa said, lifting her head. Her face was blotchy and wet, mascara running despite the minimal makeup. The owner said a man matching Dave's description checked out 3 weeks ago, paid cash, didn't leave a forwarding address. He didn't seem, the owner said, he didn't seem like he was doing well. The lie slipped out so smoothly. Frank had said no such thing. Melissa had never called the motel, but Mom would never think to verify it. 3 weeks ago, Mom repeated. He's been gone 3 weeks, and we're just finding out now? The person who mailed the letters probably didn't know who to contact, I said. They just sent them to the addresses Dave had written on the envelopes. Mom stood again, pacing the small living room. We have to do something. We can't just sit here. We have to. The police need to know. There should be a search. There should be... Mom. Melissa's voice was gentle, but firm. If Dave was planning to, if he was in that state of mind 3 weeks ago... Don't say it. Don't you dare say it. We have to face the possibility that he's gone. Really gone this time. Mom whirled on her. You want him to be dead. That's what this is about. You want to give up on him so you can move on with your life. The accusation hung in the air, brutal and raw. Melissa's face crumpled. How can you say that? I loved him. I still love him. But I can't. Tears streamed down her face. I can't keep hoping when everything points to the worst. I can't keep living in limbo when he's made it clear he doesn't want to be found. He's my son, and he was my husband. Don't you think I want him to walk through that door? Melissa stood, faced Mom directly.
But those letters, God, those letters, they're so full of pain. So full of hopelessness.
And if he was in that much pain, if we missed the signs, if we could have helped him and didn't, she broke down completely, and this time, Mom's anger dissolved into shared grief. They held each other, crying, while I sat in the armchair and watched the destruction we'd orchestrated. My phone was in my pocket, on silent, but I could feel it buzzing. Dave, probably, watching this somehow, waiting for updates. Dave, who was alive and fine, and 43 minutes away, while our mother sobbed for his death. The cruelty of it was breathtaking.
I'll call the police,
I said finally.
I'll report the letters. They'll decide if there needs to be a search or an investigation.
And if they find Mom couldn't finish, then at least we'll know, Melissa said softly. At least we'll have closure. Closure. That word again. The thing Melissa had been chasing for months. The thing she needed to finish her story. The thing that would unlock the final doors between her and complete financial freedom. We spent the rest of the afternoon in that living room, picking over the letters, trying to find meaning in words that Dave had carefully crafted to seem meaningful, while revealing nothing. Mom alternated between hope and despair, convinced one moment that Dave was still alive, certain the next that he was gone. Melissa played her role perfectly. Supportive, but realistic. Grieving, but strong. The widow who'd already done most of her crying in private and was now focused on helping the family through their pain. I played my role too. The devastated brother, the twin who'd lost his other half, the son trying to hold his mother together. All of us performing. All of us lying. Except Mom. She was the only real thing in that room. It was nearly 8 when I finally left, pleading exhaustion, promising to come back tomorrow, assuring Mom she could call me anytime, day or night. Melissa walked me to my car. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for being there today, for helping me tell her, we're family, that's what we do." She hugged me, and I felt her relax into it. Real relief, real gratitude. "I know your mom is angry at me right now," she continued, "for suggesting we accept the worst, but someone has to be realistic. Someone has to start thinking about next steps." Next steps? Legal steps, financial steps. We can't leave everything in limbo indefinitely. She pulled back, looked at me earnestly. "I know it seems cold. I know it seems like I'm giving up on him, but I'm not. I'm trying to be practical about a situation that's already devastating. I understand. Do you? Because I worry that everyone thinks I'm the villain here, that I didn't love him enough, didn't fight hard enough, didn't..." Her voice cracked. "I did everything I could, and if that wasn't enough to keep him alive, I have to live with that. But I can't live in suspended animation forever." The performance was so good, so layered and nuanced and emotionally intelligent. If I didn't know the truth, I'd believe every word. "No one thinks you're the villain," I lied. She smiled sadly. "You're a good man. Dave was lucky to have you." There it was again, past tense. I drove away from Mom's house and made it 3 blocks before I had to pull over. Sat there in my car while my hands shook and my stomach threatened to empty itself onto the dashboard. I'd done it. Executed the plan. Broken my mother's heart with fabricated evidence of her son's suicide. For the greater good. For truth. For justice. For revenge. My phone rang. "Dave, I can't talk to you right now," I said when I answered. I know it was hard. But you did it. We're almost there." Mom's destroyed. Absolutely shattered. And we did that to her. Melissa did that to her. We're just exposing it. Are we? Because from where I'm sitting, we're the ones who fabricated suicide notes. We're the ones who lied. We're the ones who turned Mom's grief into a weapon. Silence on the other end. "You want to stop?" Dave asked, finally. You want to call it off? Walk away? Did I? No, I said. But I need you to understand what this is costing, what it's turning us into. I understand. Believe me, I understand. But we're too far in to stop now. A few more days. That's all we need. I close my eyes. What happens after, when this is over? How do we come back from this? I don't know. Maybe we don't. Maybe this is the price we pay for the truth. We hung up, and I sat in my car for another 20 minutes before I could trust myself to drive. When I got home, I checked the camera feeds. Melissa had left Mom's house an hour after me. Drove straight home, and the moment she walked through her door, the grief evaporated. She went to the kitchen, poured herself a glass of wine, and called someone. The audio was clear. It went perfectly, she said. Better than I could have hoped. The letters were devastating. His mother is completely convinced he's gone. The voice on the other end was male, unfamiliar. And the brother? On board, completely. Actually, he's been instrumental. I couldn't have done this without him. Laughter from the other end. So when do you file? This week. I'll give it a few days for the emotional dust to settle, then move forward with the legal paperwork. She took a sip of wine. The timing is perfect. Publishers are going to eat this up. Tragic ending, ultimate closure, the widow's final journey through grief. You're cold, Melissa. I've always said that about you. I'm practical. There's a difference. But she was smiling. I could hear it in her voice. They talked for another 10 minutes about the book deal, about marketing strategies, about how to position the story for maximum impact and sympathy. Not once did she sound sad. Not once did her voice crack or waver. The grief she'd shown at Mom's house had been pure performance, turned on for the audience, turned off the moment she was alone. I saved the footage. My hands steady now. Clear purpose, replacing the earlier guilt. This was why we were doing it. This moment, this proof, this undeniable evidence of what she really was. But watching her celebrate Dave's fabricated death, I felt something shift inside me. We'd made her into this monster, hadn't we? By giving her the letters, by creating the situation, we provided the stage for her to reveal her worst self. But she'd stepped onto that stage willingly, eagerly. We'd given her rope, but she'd tied the noose herself. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Can't sleep. Keep reading his letter. He sounds so broken. How did we miss this? And another one. I love you. I couldn't survive this without you. I stared at those messages for a long time. Then I typed back, I love you too. We're going to get through this. I promise. One more lie in an avalanche of lies. One more performance in a theater where everyone was acting and no one knew who they really were anymore. I looked at my reflection in my darkened phone screen and saw Dave's face staring back. My twin. My accomplice. My mirror image in cruelty and calculation. In 3 days, Melissa would file the paperwork to have him declared legally dead. In 4 days, we'd release the evidence. The videos, the recordings, the financial documents, everything. In 5 days, the world would know the truth. But the truth we'd reveal would be surrounded by lies we'd told to reach it. And I wasn't sure anymore which was heavier, Melissa's fraud or our deception. Which was crueler, her abandonment of Dave or our manipulation of everyone else? Which was worse, the monster we were exposing or the monsters we'd become in the process? Outside my window, the fog had thickened, turning the city into a ghost town. Appropriate, I thought. We were all ghosts now. Some of us just didn't know it yet. 3 days later, Melissa filed the petition. I watched her do it through the office camera sitting at Dave's old desk, uploading documents to the county clerk's website, her expression neutral and businesslike. Just paperwork. just another task to check off her list. When she finished, she called her literary agent. "It's done," she said. "The legal process is started. We should have a ruling within 90 days, but my lawyer says it's a formality at this point. The evidence is overwhelming." "Perfect timing," the agent replied. "I've got 3 publishers ready to make offers the moment we have official confirmation. This is going to be big. Melissa, bestseller big." After the call, she poured herself wine and toasted the empty room. I saved the footage and called Dave. "It's time," I said. We released everything on a Tuesday morning. Not to the police, not yet. First, to her followers, the people who'd funded her healing journey, who'd believed her story, who'd made her rich off my brother's suffering. I created a website. Simple, clean, devastating. The truth about Melissa Morrison's missing husband. The homepage opened with a video. Dave, sitting in that motel room, very much alive, explaining exactly what had happened. Below that, financial records showing the trust fund fraud, screenshots of her social media revenue, audio recordings of her celebrating his death, video of her turning off the tears after recording grief content, and finally, the surveillance footage from the past 3 weeks, Melissa planning, calculating, profiting. Melissa's real face when she thought no one was watching. We sent the link to her top 1,000 followers, to her literary agent, to the trust fund administrator, to every podcast host who'd interviewed her, every brand that had sponsored her, every person who'd made her story profitable. Then we sent it to the police. And then Dave drove home. I was at Mom's house when he arrived. She'd been crying for 3 days straight, inconsolable, destroyed by grief that we'd manufactured. The doorbell rang. I answered it. Dave stood on the porch, thin and exhausted and very much alive. Behind me, I heard Mom's sharp intake of breath, then footsteps. Running. She pushed past me and grabbed her son, holding him like she'd never let go, sobbing his name over and over. "I'm sorry," Dave said into her hair. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm here. I'm alive. I'm home." Over Mom's shoulder, his eyes met mine. We'd done it, exposed Melissa, revealed the truth, won. So why did I feel like we lost something we could never get back? My phone buzzed. News alerts flooding in. Melissa's social media accounts going dark. Her followers realizing they'd been lied to. The story was breaking. The truth was out. And in the morning, we'd face the consequences. Melissa's arrest, the media circus, Mom's confusion and anger about the lies we'd told her. But tonight, my brother was home. Damaged, changed, haunted by 26 months in a room that had nearly destroyed him. But home, I stepped onto the porch, closed the door behind me, and let them have their reunion in private. The fog had lifted. The sun was setting. The world kept turning. And somewhere in the city, Melissa was learning that ghosts could speak. That truth, eventually, finds its way to light. That some performances end with curtain calls, and others end with sirens.